Chapter 25. An Ambush. There is a new channel #vote on Discord. There is a vote about the Civil War now. Go check it out. Much better than the old one. A side novel for this novel was made for the Special Plus 18 Scenes, Skyrim. Sexual Adventures of John Dare. This novel is family-friendly again. Bjarna will be changed to Bjorna. Apparently Bjarna is a male name and the female version is Bjorna. The last chapter was unedited the first few hours. It's now edited to the best of my current ability. Enjoy. Hilda? The woman stiffened in her place and was surprised to see me. Silence took over, but someone spoke. Hilda? You know Auntie, Bjorna reacted. I was taken aback. What auntie? Wasn't she your mother just a while ago? I couldn't say that as it was still confusing. I just pointed between the so-called mother and daughter while making a dummy. Hee. Look at your dumb face, lad. Pretty much confusing me and dat she troll. The woman said, I am much prettier, you know. Hee. What the hell with this lady? She looks like Hilda, but the accent is so out of place. You are not Hilda? I asked. Poor lad. I told her to visit ya every once in a while. Figured you'd forget how she looked like. The woman said, anyways, name's Scotty. Hilda's me older sister. I was processing this event, but it felt like my brain was having a hard time keeping. Just more headache for me. Wasn't Hilda the one who taught you fighting after that day? Wolfer tried to remember. It didn't really tell him the truth about her. I nodded. What? Ani taught you fighting? Bjorna yelled. Believe it or not, this lad got lucky and Hilda saw talent in him, Scotty said. But how did you recognize me? I asked as I wasn't sure just yet. Your ma told Hilda you're coming to town. Hilda told me to keep an eye ya. Scotta spoke while finding a seat. This still is confusing. I sighed to myself. You don't need to worry. You'll see Hilda in year. She told me she'll be bringing ya to the sermon. Don't die till then. Scotty was still talking in that manner. Yeah, thanks. Still it's strange to see how much you resemble each other. I said, making a wry smile. Lair. Hilda's the older one. She's like giant besides me. I am a bit shorter, and she acts like a bandit and drinks all day. Scotty said, somehow I could feel that she is very close to Hilda. And you act like a pirate. That was Bjorna. I kind of see that this girl was suffering for some reason. Stinkin' brat. Who's the pirate? Scotty retorted. There was a bit of argument, but I think I passed the trauma. One question, please. Are there any more sisters I should be aware of? I had to ask that one. Nah. It's just me, Hilda, and a dozen brothers. She said. A dozen? I yelled. Ha ha. Look at your dumb face. Scotty laughed. The trauma came back. So, you all came here to buy something? Scotty said. John wanted cats. Bjorna said. Cats? Big ones? Scotty asked. Well, it happened like this. Bjorna started to tell her the story from when we entered the shop. Scotty was laughing, but I didn't want to remember that experience once again. You had it hard, lad. Scotty was amused. But that won't do. If you want a beast, then wait until you see Hilda. Why? I asked. Hilda's arranging something good for ya. I don't want to spoil the fun, but it's better than anything we normally sell, Scotty said. Is the word cat anywhere in its description? I asked. Just look forward to it. Scotty sighed. Okay, if it's Hilda, then I won't argue. About your friends here, did you see anything you fancy? Scotty asked the trio. Looking at Battleborn, he puffed his chest and said, I am no milk drinker. If a beast can't fight, then what use do I have for it? If a beast can fight, it'll eat a brat like you once it's hungry. If you want a beast, then you have to raise it from the time it was born. Scotty gave a cold reply. Battleborn was taken aback and didn't argue. He started thinking about it. What about you, big boy? Which do you fancy? Scotty turned to Wolfer. Wolfer said I, and his face turned stiffened. Poor guy. What were you thinking about just now? Scotty noticed and frowned. Then she noticed Bjorna's face turning red. She glared back at Wolfer. A bear, Scotty said. If you can't raise a bear, then ya re no good. Rest in peace is my brother. And ya lasse? Scotty turned to Sviti. I really have nothing I want. Sviti was about to cry. Come on, you can do better. Scotty insisted. But I don't want a beast. Sviti was about to cry. Fine, you can have a fox. Scotty decided. And Yarl'll have a hound. Then she told Battleborn. Seriously now, how do you do business like this? Speaking of Wolfer, as he was not speaking, I pointed at him and asked Scotty about the bear thing. But I was cut in by her. The biggest bear cub I find is his. Let's hope it will be a panda, as pitiful and gentle as Wolfer. I sighed for God knows how many times this day. Scotty led us to a place where we found small foxes. Sviti picked a white snow fox. John Battleborn didn't have it hard. He could choose a pup of a bear dog. If this thing grows well, it will be scary. Next year, you drag your friend here with ya, Scotty said. Next year, I'll be in Winterhold, and he will be staying here. I said. I'll figure something out, Wolfer said, brave as ever. Fine by me, Scotty said. Excuse me, does your shop offer a cat therapy? I asked something that was on my mind. Oh, I don't know what's that, lad, Scotty asked. You see, in my past life, people would go to cat therapy places to sit with a lot of cats for a day and get healed by how fluffy and cute they are. I said. Oh, I could use some of that, Ms. Elf, but what's with that past life? She asked. John believes in past lives and dragons, Ma. It's just a joke, he says. Jorna said. Good to believe in something while still young. I used to believe there is a dragon living on High Hrothgar when I was young, Scotty said while looking to the space. Okawaye. Let's not confirm that point. Anyway, it was nice meeting you, Scotty. It really took me by surprise. I said, taking our leave. I am all beaten up after the match today. Fine, lad. Don't get yourself into trouble, she said. Don't know what she meant by that, but she looked at me right in the eye. I am planning to make an upheaval, though. We said our farewells and left the shop. Wolfer looked back at the direction of the shop few times. We traded few pets with some coins and Wolfer's heart. Sounds like a good bargain to me, I said, teasing him. Wolfer didn't reply, but he walked to Battleborn. I am taking your horse. Where to? Battleborn asked. I'll go to the horsemanship contest. I'll go first, Wolfer said and ran. We looked at each other, then sighed. It's not going to be easy from now on. Third-person POV. After John and Co left, Scotty looked at Jorna and asked her about what does she think of John and his friends. Jorna's impression on them was good, but when it came to Wolfer, the girl was stuttering in words. It made Scotty smile. Then she started asking about John. The strength he showed today in the fight was amazing for a youth in his age. He was unusual and his ideas were really strange. In her opinion, he was a dangerous foe to face either with a weapon or not. She was a veteran brawler and she could wrestle with even bears. Yet she didn't think she can win against his style on equal strength. Better grow up, lad. Ani wants a fight. Scotty was smiling like a beast. Did you say something, Ma? Jorna overheard something and asked. Nah, nothing, Scotty said. Enough slacking then. Go to your chores, or no booze for you tonight. Jorna yelled at Scotty. When did you be my ma? Scotty was complaining about her daughter. Scotty went up, but she looked at the place where John was standing and remembered something. Dragons. First-person POV. I was quite in a strange mood after meeting with Scotty and Jorna. They were very good people, and other than Hilda, this was my first time meeting relatives. Seems like the clan I hail from is pretty much wealthy too. Thinking about it, I still don't understand why they had to let go of me. The 25 years old me doesn't care, but the 15 years old does. Was I carrying some sort of secret? Did they know that there is a possibility in the future that I may become a Dragonborn? I am not sure about that myself, but the thing that happened seemed big, and I don't think I will know unless I hear them. Me losing to my emotions yesterday and showing a shocked face was truly beyond my ability. I really liked Hilda and never minded her at all, but Scotty was really different now that I think about it. I haven't seen Hilda and stayed with her only a week. No matter what my emotions are, I don't think I can remember her appearance now that well. Let's focus on being better for now. I can't protect myself from a troll. How can I be of any use with my current strength? I slept on these ideas. A day passed. Wolfer made a good record yesterday. as he had a lot of steam to blow off. It was my turn today, so I took the horse and headed to the track. I had a long sword on me, so I was prepared. The track starts from the first gate of Solitude, going down the road, passing the stables, turning left to the docks direction, galloping over the docks, crossing the bridge over the big warehouse under Solitude, then galloping all the way to Solitude Lighthouse. Someone will ride behind me to record my time and see how many targets I hit. The leaderboard had the 3 top records, with the college at the first place, followed by the companion's second team and White Plains, the team that was supported by Jarl Balgruuf. This was unexpected to many. The college didn't look that good in physical arts, but the surprisingly made the highest score, and it was not Rusning, it was a girl named Jolma. The reason was her initiate ability to cast spells in a very fast rate, and she had a good amount of magicka too. The girl really was like a machine gun who can shoot the same apprentice-level spells twice in a second from one hand. That was the college for you. It was rumored that she could hit the target at least twice before she passes it while speeding with the horse. Problem is, some targets were really close to each other, so most riders will need to slow down and make a hit, but she would spam spells like crazy while riding fast. The time between her and Vilka's from the second place was a challenge to beat. It was my turn and I was riding on Battleborn's horse. It was your typical Skyrim horse, big legs, large butt, dumb face. It wasn't that slow, but I didn't like it. I have ridden horses in my past life, and they were Arabian horses. Tall, fit, strong, and beautiful. This thing was barely as fast as a camel. Its name was Meatloaf, and don't ask me why. I was at the start line, and a man came with a horse after me. This was the judge of the race. He would record how many targets I hit, and record the start time on the sundial near the start line, and the finishing time on the sundial near the last line. He nodded and told me, "Any time now." I held the reins tightly and pressed on the horse with my legs with a haya. Leaning my body forward while the horse starting to gallop, I could feel the fresh air on my face. Down the road through the stables there was a hanging target. It was a sand sack. A lightning bolt spell in my right hand made it explode. Canceling the spell, I turned to the left after reaching the turning point. There was a target concealed in the corner, but a spell can get it easily, and so it was. Galloping again and hitting many hang targets easily, the ground target started to appear. I switched to the sword and started taking the down. Reaching the bridge, I could see 3 targets in the same spot, one hanged, one on the left, and one on the right. That was going to be hard. I didn't speed up, but I sheathed the sword, shot the left and right with magic, then unsheathed the sword once again, stood on the saddle, and slashed at the hanging target. I could hear the man riding behind me saying, "Nice." The next challenge was after the bridge. I could see many ground targets left and right. Recalling some TV show scene, I sheathed the sword and switched to bound sword on both hands. I made an upper slash while rotating my arms a full circle with every slash. Every target was hit successfully. Like the Dothraki rider from Game of Thrones S74. I really wanted someone to get that on camera. Nothing hard came after that, and I could reach the lighthouse with no problems. After passing the finish line, the man jumped down and ran to the sundial and stalled on a platform under the sun. He took a charcoal pin and made a mark, then looked at the other marks and checked the note of the target record in his hand. "You took the second place," he said. "Damn. Seriously? That girl from the college was better than me? Fine. I am not even dissatisfied," I said. "You have done well. See you at the group duels, my boy," the man said and left away. I was in a good mood, so I stood to watch the sea for a while, then rode and headed back. While I was riding, I felt the air change, and my alarm spell made a tech sound in my head. An enemy? But where? I looked in the front and in the back, but no one was there. Tech. 3 times? That close? I galloped forward, but I could see nothing. I made a detect magic spell, and I could see a reaction from the roadside under some boulder. I didn't think and fired a lightning bolt. The only reaction I got was an arrow flying at me. Act now. Think later. I don't know how many enemies, but the ambush they prepared didn't work, and it seemed to have no plan B. Amateurs. Let's catch them. Chapter 26, Murderer. An extra large thanks to Adamo Fi. Sayon for reaching the 2nd tier and becoming a companion. A bounce chapter will be posted after this one. Star. The road was narrow, and hardly anyone would find a good place to hide and make an ambush. This meant these fellows had made adjustments to ambush me knowing that I would be alone. Unfortunately for them, Narina taught me that one can never be too careful. This is why I always activate the alarm, spell, and charge it to last longer. Dark elves like Narina have been met with a terrible hospitality after they fled Morrowind, so having a high awareness was what made them survive. I learned all that from Narina, and I could survive 2 attempts on my life now. About the current situation, the ambushers don't seem to be experienced in making a strategy. It reminded me of an event that happens in the game when the player gets attacked by hired thugs. Anyway, now 2 of the ambushers had spears, and the other had a bow. One of the spearmen was blocking the road behind me, the other 2 were at the front. This was a strategy to deal with a rider. So, let's not ride. I went down from Meatloaf and hit its but to clear the place. Wouldn't want the horse to get injured. Who sent you? I asked. Look at him courting death. If you remained on your horse, you might have a chance to run, the archer said. Seems like he is the boss around here. Tell me who sent you, and you will get out of it alive, I said. Making them angry is better than keeping them cool-headed. You'll know once we send you to oblivion, the man said as he was aiming at me. As I go into combat state, the spell Okada's Rectical activates Stone Skin. Protection is good at any case since I was unarmored. I ran towards the 2 in the front while unsheathing the sword. As I get near to the spearman, I throw the sword at his unarmored arm. The sword grazed the arm and leaves a big wound. I was already near the man and was dodging the arrows that came at me. Once I was close enough, I grabbed the spear in his hand and pulled it while kicking the man away. He didn't offer much resistance. The bowman was few steps away, and he was switching to an axe. I aimed the spear and stabbed at his hip. I seemed to have hit a major blood vessel as the blood was going like crazy. The last man was running at me 20 meters away. I looked at him and shot a lightning bolt. After 3 hits, he was already down. I switched my attention to the last man who was hit by my thrown sword and fell down. He grabbed the sword I threw at him and slashed at me, shouting, "Die? Seriously? Die?" I just dodged him few times, then held his arm that held the sword, used his charge, carried him over and to the ground with a thud sound. He coughed blood, but I sent him to dreamland with a stomp on his face. This was a disappointment in my opinion. Someone sent the sheep to hunt the wolf. At least look for something as good as last time assassins. After healing the bleeding man, I tied them up with their clothes and linsed them in the ground. With few slaps they regained consciousness. They looked around left and right and then to me. Monster, the archer said. Who sent you? I said. We brothers won't betray a contractor no matter what happened to us. Another said. A milk drinker like you wouldn't even dare to kill a chicken, the last one said. Even the ruffians in Riften know when to give up, I exclaimed. Seems like every city is different. No one can hide in Riften unless he had a backer, but seems like Solitude is a bit safe, so ruffians here are softer than the lowlives in Riften. I took the axe and examined it. It looked like the woodcutter axe from the game. Let's do it that way then, I said while raising the axe and burying it deep into the spearman's head. The blood went out and flew in every direction. This was the second life I take. I could feel the skull getting crushed and the sensation of the axe going into the soft organs of the body. I really couldn't hold it anymore and backed away. I threw up all I ate this morning. I felt dizzy. This was horrible. I didn't have to kill that man, but I thought it's a good chance to get used to killing. My inner demons insinuated that to me. I'll need to kill to protect and survive. Why not start now? I could hear the other 2 men wailing and cursing at me, calling their brother's name. They sure didn't think a younger would do that. I kept throwing up. It was horrible. The more I do, the more fear will get out of me. I, who was born in a peaceful world, would never think of living this experience. I remembered the assassin I killed. I was hyped with adrenaline, and it was a clean stab. Nothing like this mess. Finally, it stopped and I could stand up again while staggering. I looked at the corpse and the urge to throw up came back, but I was emptied. Who sent you? I asked again while trying to stand up properly. The men were wailing over their brother. Cowards. Men don't wail like that. I went to the corpse and looked at it. then grabbed the axe that was stuck in the skull and pulled it out. One of the men was screaming and cursing while the other had his mind already broken. I pointed the axe under his chin and raised his face to look at me with the axe. "Speak or die," I said. "Blackbriar, Sibby Blackbriar," he said as he already gave up. He was broken from just knowing that death was at hand. And it was none other than good old Sibby. "I'll deal with him later." The other man was going berserk, so I had to shut him up. The axe found its place into his skull just like his first brother. It didn't end here. I raised the axe again and did the same with last brother. Blood was everywhere, on my face, on my clothes, on my hands, even some entered my mouth. The sky turned dark and dark clouds appeared. A storm is coming. I looked around me and it was a bloody mess. I dragged the corpses away from the road. After spacing out for a while, the sky started pouring its rain. It was a thunderstorm. I walked to the horse which was panicking and rode it back to the city. The rain cleaned all the blood on me and cleared my path as everyone was hiding in their homes. As I reached the inn, I tied the horse in the stable and went to my room. It was dark, but I just threw myself on the bed and slept like the way I was. It was a terrible sleep. I also saw some unreasonable dream too. I looked around me and found that the room was messy. I had to clean it and change into some easy clothes. I went down, but the place was hectic on the first floor of the inn. It seemed that they discovered that 3 regular thugs were brutally murdered outside the city. The cart just brought them to the square, and their families came for them. I went to look, but it was just too much. One of them had an elderly mother and a sister. The other had no one, and the last was married. I couldn't wait to see more. I just walked somewhere far. I reached the castle area and looked around. I saw some shops were open. Stopping at a stall, I picked up some street food to eat. I was hungry and ate like a pig. People around me were talking about the brutal murder that happened. Even though the world wasn't peaceful, Solitude was a safe city and these events were rare. I couldn't stay around to listen to that. These 3 were there to kill me, and I happened to be much better than them. I kept walking and walking till it got dark. I saw the Hall of the Dead, and there seemed to be a sermon. I stood and watched. The 3 were being buried in the crypt of the hall. Funny, I remembered a saying from my past life. It was killed the man and attended his funeral. I just literally did that. Damn it. Why am I smiling? This is not funny. I walked away again. I turned from alley to escape reality for a while. I could do nothing about it anymore. I went back in the direction of the inn. Tomorrow is a big day after all. I need at least to be ready. As I walked in the inn, Wolfer and Battleborn were there waiting while looking worried. "What's going on?" I asked. "Where have you been all day?" Wolfer asked. "I was just in a mood to go out," I said. "Did you forget about the lots event today?" Battleborn said. "I went in your stead and something is not right." Drawing lots was that thing about arranging the 32 teams into the elimination contest. Team duels were to start tomorrow, and it could be considered the main event. "What happened?" I asked. "After the assassins team were discovered, the teams became 31, so that means a team will go to the round of 16 without dueling. Guess which team was that?" Wolfer said. "Which team?" I asked. "Black Snow, the one sponsored by the Blackbriars," Battleborn said. "You mean they are paying?" I asked. The 2 nodded. "Not just that," Wolfer said. "All the teams we are facing are a headache after a headache." "Who are we facing?" I asked. "We are the first duel tomorrow. We will face Team North Stars of that guy Ongium," Battleborn said. "After it, in the round of 16 we may face the Companion's second team. No problem on my side. I would hate it if we faced any weak team," I said. "Thought you would say so," Wolfer said. "But whatever bothering you today may affect us tomorrow, so you better be ready." "Okay. Anything else I should know about the matches?" I asked. "Nah. Just that each round will be finished in a day, which means this team duels will take 5 days to finish," Battleborn said. "I know about this. Anything else?" "The number of fighters in the arena will be according to the lowest team in number, which means if we go 5 against 3, the team of 5 will only send 3. If one of those fell, then another can take his place. This is unfair for small teams. Lucky for us, the smallest team is just 3 players, which means we can go in and out as a whole. What about our strategy? Wolfer asked. We will go with the usual one. I will take a flank and support with healing. You will carry your shield and defend the middle while Dragonborn will be taking the other flank with fast hit and run, I said. Sure it will work? Dragonborn asked. Like a charm, I said. Chapter 27. The Round of 32 is a good distraction. This bounced chapter comes to you by the good graces of Edmo Fi. Essay, pray for him to never have diarrhea. There is a damn vote, ladies and gentlemen, and it's 7:6 for the people who wants not a safe Torig. What are you waiting for? Go to Discord and hashtag #. The first match was us against the team North Stars. The arena was full and every big shot was there. Viarmo took the commentary as usual and made the introduction of the teams. Team White Wolves was me, John Dragonborn a swordsman and Wolfer a shield bearer. Team North Stars was Ongium a berserker, Jargrim with a sword and shield and Dritla a giant tomboy girl with a spear and buckler. Wolfer stood in the middle with his big shield. He had 4 small axes on his back and a new flail. To his right was Dragonborn with a long sword, and on his left was me with Agniare on my shoulder. On the other side, Ongium stood on the middle, on his left was Jargrim, and on his right was Dritla. I could see Scotty and Bjorna in the crowd, which made my mood much better. Now I need to kick Ongium and his goons to oblivion and win the damn duel. As the match started, Ongium ran like a madman, swinging his dual axes downwardly at Wolfer. Wolfer bashed him with his ridiculously large shield and Ongium staggered backward. Our plan was to not give them a time for breath. I rushed at Ongium and swung the hammer at him. The poor boy was taken by surprise and the hammer landed on him nicely. His teamwork skills are lacking. He rushed at us alone. We, on the other hand, didn't move from our starting place. His team caught up, but I was back to my position. As Jargrim attacked Dragonborn, but they were evenly matched. Wolfer and Ongium clashed once again, yet Ongium this time has the upper hand as his axes were faster than Wolfer's flail. Dritla attacked me relentlessly. I have to finish her before we get the others. After few exchanges, Dritla stabbed at me with her spear, but I retreated backward and hammered down her spear. As her spear touched the ground, it broke. The girl was in distress, but I kept attacking and she was defending with the spear's pole. I managed to land a hit after a long exchange, and she was as good as done. Wolfer, switch. As I say that, Wolfer backs away from Ongium and faces Dritla. Ongium tried to stop him, but I was on his way. What's up? I said. Ongium was annoyed by my way of speaking and started waving his axes left and right. I dodged only to the back to make a space away from others. After taking enough distance and using his rush, I started my counterattack. I swung my hammer at him, and he crossed his axes to make a hasty block. The weapons met, and he survived the surprised attack, relying on luck. He thought he changed the situation using the slow reaction of hammers. Yet who did he think I am? The second swing was not a second late to the first, followed by a kick to his knee and a third hammer swing. Ongium couldn't do anything but to retreat. He took some distance and started running at me like a madman. His axes moved faster than my hammer, and he was moving fast too. I can't afford to lose in speed against that guy. I rotated my body around itself and threw the hammer at the rushing Ongium. His rush was disturbed. Then I hastily made 2 bound sword spells on each hand, summoned 2 spectral swords. Using magic, you shameless bastard, Ongium said. He must be one of those Nords who hate magic. Humph. I could only snort at that ice-brain Nord. These people are simply stupid. The fast exchange started to happen once again. This guy was really tall. Also, he had a lot of stamina. His strength and speed were good as well. I was faster than him, but to overwhelm him, I needed to weaken his momentum. I cut him few times and he got annoyed of it, but as I should not exhaust myself on him, I had to play it dirty. No, we had to play it dirty. Just as Wolfer was done with already beaten up Dritla, he came rushing at Ongium, who felt distress. 2-on-1 ended quickly and Ongium was lashed by Wolfer's flail on his armor, which barely absorbed some of the shock. The last one was Dragonborn and Jargrim. Dragonborn was already winning, but we surrounded Jargrim and thrashed him black and blue. Our win was declared. It was an easy and fast fight. Following up was the companion's second team against Team Cold Wind. I could foresee an easy win to the companions' first team. The other important matches were Stormcloaks versus Winter Era, Wolfsong versus War Maidens, Wolvenstorm versus Companions' first team, Golden Swords versus Shattershield, Arcane Wisdom versus Fair Winds. This only meant that the city will be watching the matches and the streets will be quiet. I told Wolfer and Battleborn to watch the matches and left alone. I have a plan to make. I tried to get a map for the sewers from the Thieves' Guild, but it seemed like there is no one who goes there for any reason. My interest in the sewers was because in the game, you can escape from the castle's jail through it. That's how I was planning to save the assassin girl. After all, I left her a message when I threw her journal to her. I remember what I wrote. I thought to interest her if I wrote a poem back to her, and this was my first time writing a poem to a girl. How embarrassing. I found a manhole in a hidden place behind the alchemy store I spotted a while ago. I had already taken my plate body armor off as well as the helmet and left the hammer away before I leave the arena. I was now light armored and pretty much agile. I went into the manhole and closed it after I went in. This smell of S***T that I never forgot from Riffin's Ratway was here, still much better than the Ratway. This sewer system was wide and its style was much more modern compared to Rift Inn. I think the city takes care of this place probably. Preparing a candlelight spell and a bound sword spell, I now was ready to explore this sewer system. Relying on my good sense of direction, I made a guess and followed it towards the location I guess is the place where the castle is. Some parts of the sewers were new, some other parts were really old. Some parts had Dwemer pipes going through them. I guess the city imported them from Solitude. Skeevers were everywhere, of course, and I was used to killing them in the Ratway. What was unexpected was undead. An undead Draugr appeared before me. What brings a Draugr to a city sewer tunnel? I made a guess, but maybe some old crypt was open to the sewers or something. Draugrs are mummified ancient Nords to protect the old crypts of the dead. These things were one of the arts of necromancy that the old Nords excelled in. I didn't find the Draugr to be that much strong, but it moved so fast. I used the bound sword with a Sunfire spell on the left hand. It was pretty much done for. I checked the equipment on it. It looked like the ancient Nord equipments from the game, but they were pretty much rotten. The wood of the axe turned green. It was a mystery how these things remained sturdy. Moving on, I arrived to corridor. It was going up somewhere. The area around was old, so it meant this part of the underground sewers wasn't manned. I went up the corridor and could feel few presence. I think I reached where I want. I was under the castle. I could see some old walls and few holes in them. I canceled the candlelight spell and waited for my eyes to get used to the darkness. I tried to look through the holes, but I found no clue to which part of the prison was this. I made a bound dagger and started removing some bricks from the walls. I could see few prisoners now. Examining the terrain, I found the cell of the girl, but it was a challenge to get to. After finding a way to the wall behind her cell, I started removing the pricks carefully. The girl noticed something was not right and approached the wall. "Don't make any noise," I whispered to her. "Why are you helping me?" She talked in a low voice. "I am from the guild. Jimzaw wanted you out or dead depending on what you confessed," I said. "But I didn't confess anything," the girl said. "That's not for me to decide," I said. "Thank you about the journal," she said. "In the poem." "No problem. 5 days from now the tourney will end. I will leave the city and I'll break you out that day," I said. "Remember what I wrote. Wait until fire breaks out." "Fine," she said. "By the way, what should I call you with?" I asked. "I am known as Mabia, but that's the name they gave me. I don't have a birth name," she said. "What a tragic child." "The hole is big enough now," I said. "When the fire breaks out in the castle, know the bricks and run to the sewers. I'll be waiting." "Okay," she said. "I'll be needing some boots by then." "Demanding one, aren't you?" "Fine. I'll bring you food too," I said. After AI finished, I left her and went back to the corridor and from it to the sewers. I can find my way back to the city, but where does the sewers end at? I followed the passage for a while and finally found the exit. It was barred, but it seems there is a gap beside the bars. Using bound battle axe, I conjured a big battle axe and started digging in that gap. After a short time of hard digging, the gap has widened enough. I could go in and out easily. The place outside was under the city after the docks. This was a good place to make the second part of the plan. After covering the gap, I went back and climber out of the manhole while checking my surrounding. The sky was about to get dark, yet the arena was still bustling with noise. This has taken longer than expected. I returned to the inn and ordered some hot water to wash myself from the filth. These were some very annoying couple of days. As I got cleaner, I dressed properly and went out of the city towards the bathhouse. Finding Miccolo the Altmare barber, I entered his shop and looked around. "You got out early from the arena," he said. "You too," I said. "Were you up to something?" he asked. "I was making preparations," I said. "So, how will this go?" he asked. "The girl seems to have said some things, but her mind is all broken from the torture," I said. "So it will be like this? Have you killed before?" he asked. "No. How do you think I should do it?" I asked. "A stab to a vital spot will be fast and clean," he said. "What should I do with the body?" I said. "Throw it in the sewers, unless you want to bring a shovel and a priest of Arche," he said, mocking me. I made up an upset face, but just as I turned and left, I couldn't help but smile. Everything was ready. I will go and relax now. I headed to the bathhouse while whistling. "So you came back. Remember what I said. The private rooms for you. No cheap tints after you did last time." The bathhouse mistress met me with cold gaze. "Fine, fine. Don't glare like that or wrinkles will appear on your pretty face," I said. "The girls from last time?" I asked. "Did you think I would give you any other girls? Do you know how they couldn't take a client without complaining how boring it was?" she said while glaring at Little John. Okay, I'll be going in here for 4 hours, just in case," I said while going to the one-story bath building. As I entered the building, I found a tub bigger than the ones in the tents with more space and some fragrant herbs. This was much more expensive than outside, but I had no problem with the money. Before anything else, I glooped on an essence of the troll potion, got rid of the potion vial. After looking around, the door was opened and 2 girls in white one-piece clothes came in. They were Elishka and Xena, my favorite wenches in the bathhouse. They of course came with wine and everything. I like smart girls. "We missed you, master. What took you so long?" Elishka, the girl with crazy body, threw herself in my chest as if some addict has found his poison. Her body was burning. Xena also put the wine and clung on me. She was a shorter than the tall Elishka and had belly athletic figure with high flexibility. Elishka's was soft and sensual. One would melt into it. These girls were 2 different categories, yet together they can form a great team. "Bath now, fun later," I said while slapping their butts. As they filled the tub with hot water, I sat in it naked. This thing was much better than before. There were even some herbs in the tub: lavender, mountain flowers, and dragon's tongue. This was sure luxurious. After finishing their duties as bathhouse girls, they came and sat on my hips. They were already naked and waiting for approval. "You can't even give me time to breath, can you?" I said. "How mean, master? We were waiting for you for days and you left us for this long," Xena complained. "And we hid the subject from the rest of the girls. We couldn't let anyone share our master with us," Elishka said. "I totally did a number on you girls. This time, however, I am going to give you your fill from me," I said. "I'll leave right after the tourney." "How sad, master. You'll have to visit me if you come to Solitude again," Xena said. "Elishka will return to her town to get married. This is her last night in the house. I'll be happy to send her off then," I said while hugging Elishka tighter. "There is a lucky bastard who will have all that for himself." Elishka was at her late 20s, a perfect balance between youth and maturity. "Let's not waste time then." As I said that, Xena was already on her knees between my legs, and Elishka was engaging with me into a round of kisses. Little John was standing high and mighty after being buffed by the potion. Essence of the Troll doesn't only enhance the performance temporarily with no side effects, it also increases the size permanently by a small rate. Xena took care of Little John in magical ways, and Elishka was sucking my soul through my mouth. This was how it felt like to be spoiled by 2 beauties. It Xena them 5 minutes to turn it into a mess, while Elishka was stuffing my fingers into her oven. The feeling was amazing. I don't know what's got my head, but I took my fingers off Alishka's oven and stuffed them into Xena's mouth, who sucked them clean. This was a bit sadistic even for my standards. Sometimes an inner devil insinuates me for these stuff, though. Alishka's body was burning with every second. I was starting to feel worried, so I looked at her face. Her expressions were already in another realm. Yep, she is ready. I took her up and took her legs around me while sitting and carefully put it into hers. She was making all kind of moans that made me go crazy. A thrust after thrust, the main event started. Xena washed away the mess of fluid she was in and stuck to me from the back. I was sandwiched by two beauties. Nothing feels better than being sandwiched like that. I was immersing my face in Alishka's buns while she was bouncing on me. After some time, she started to twitch and moan louder. Her oven was running wild, but I wasn't done with her. I went faster till I could feel myself going to make a mess. As I took it out, sure enough, mess went everywhere on her body. Strange enough, Xena was demanding for a share. This girl really loves fluids. Alishka was out of energy and lying bare on the tub side. She was a sight of curves and canyons, a sinful body no matter how you look at it. Xena jumped on me with a smile while saying my turn. Unlike Alishka, who was tall and curvy with an hourglass figure, Xena was shorter, thinner, younger, tighter, and more flexible. Her body was that of a gym model. One thing about her was her reputation. Her stamina was high and she was hard to satisfy. She also gets really tricky when she wants to pleasure herself. It's said that it's hard to survive between her legs when she's in the mood. Once I started kissing with her, she started doing some yoga movements. She hanged herself on me while doing a leg spread that she fit herself onto. Little John, the she locked her legs around me. That was impressive. I kinda like these moves. I didn't get that last time, I said. Last time we were not in the closed rooms, she said. So their services can be extended to yoga shows in the rooms. What about her? Other talents? I asked while looking at Alishka. Xena started moving up and down slowly, then she answered. Her moans make men lose their minds. So it was like that. I was affected by that too. Xena started moving up and down while rubbing her buns on my chest, and she kissed me while sucking my tongue. I am learning new stuff today. Few minutes later, Alishka joined the action again. As she replenished her energy, she was moaning as if she was still far from over. These girls today were for a long stand, and I was getting along with the idea. I want to recharge my fill of these sexy girls. Heaven know when will I be able to find such equality again. Xena's turn was a heated one, and she lasted much more than Alishka. Alishka was making it hard on me as she started to play with herself and kiss with me and Xena. Got to admit, I liked that girl-on-girl action. Xena wasn't easy, but her strength started to loosen, and I could feel her pleasure taking over, and she started squirting like a fountain. Xena didn't let go, but Alishka pulled her away and started sucking Little John. There was no way that I can hold it anymore under her mercy. Xena was still sucking on my tongue as Alishka was switching between Little John and Xena's oven. Just as she was done, she climbed up and joined the fray upstairs. I was holding a beauty in each hand and engaging in all sorts of pleasure. I had an idea from a hentai clip I saw before. I lied Alishka on her back and Xena on top of her face to face. Then I pressed on them as their ovens stuck tightly on each other. It felt so hot, as if it was the living incarnation of the Red Mountain. I'll call that position Vanderfell then. I stuck it between the two and started pleasure all of us. Alishka and Xena played with each other and were firing each other up. This didn't end until I mad mess few times following one another without stopping. As we finished, the girls were already lying bare on the ground to rest. No matter how I see it, everything is too sticky that we needed a serious bath now. This was amazing, I said. Yes, Master was greater than last time. Alishka playfully. Hee, I felt that too. I was satisfied. Now clean this mess up. Xena shouted for a servant to bring many barrels of hot water to the room. They came right away and everything was cleaned in few minutes. While they were bathing me, I made a real conversation with them for the first time. So what brought a nice place like you to nice wenches like this? I asked the question playfully. The girls giggled and looked to each other, then spoke. I escaped from home to find a family member who escaped from home too. Interesting story, I said. Actually, it was messed up. The girl laughed and spoke no more. This meant she won't tell more. What about you? I asked Alishka. I just left my town to make money in the city. Once I get back, I'll buy my family's house back and get married. She said. As long as you don't go anywhere near Helgen. I said. What about Master? Xena asked. I'll win the tourney, then I'll wander Skyrim. I said. We don't go to the tourney, but we heard that Master's prowesses in battle are as great as in bad. Alishka said. Damn right, I said, then kissed her for her good choice of words. Won't Master find a Jarl to serve as the other free participants? She asked. I am better off on my own, I said. Chapter 28, The Round of 16 Part 1. John is angry. There is a new chapter on SSAOJD. This chapter is completely unedited. I wrote it while traveling. Just as I finished the bath, I dressed myself and got out. The bathhouse started having customers after the matches ended. Walking out, I saw the bathhouse mistress calling for me. More money? I asked. I am wondering how you last this long, boy. She said, if it was not for Xena, even if I gave you 5 girls, you shouldn't last that long. The glory of being a Dragonborn may be reflected on this feature too. I said. Dragonborn? Glory. I heard stories about that, but don't joke around with this word around Nords. She said. I know that, but what stories? I asked. The stories of Tiber Septim. He had his ways with ladies, like the Queen of Mournhold. She said, but as I told you, don't go around saying jokes about Dragonborns and Talos. Nords don't fancy these kind of jokes. Fine, fine. Thank you. I said my thanks and left. I returned to the inn while humming the Pink Panther theme. My mood was just that good. You're late. We sent people to look for you. Sviti was the one waiting for me right after I went into the inn. Something did happen? I asked. Something did happen, she replied. When we got out of the arena on the way here, some drunk thugs wanted to fight with Brother and John. We took them as some drunks wanting to brawl, but suddenly they took out daggers and went for blood. Her tone was stiff and her face was pale. Brother and John fought them and beat them up. One of the thugs bled too much and no one saved him. Now the guards have them in the castle jail, Sviti said and started to cry. Calm down, they'll be all right, I said and hugged her. She was shivering. She was barely holding herself together, but now she's in a mess. If Wolfer saw her like this, he'll go berserk. He is overprotective when it comes to her. I ran to my room and found the armor, hammer, and helmet I left behind. Sviti said she asked someone to carry my stuff here. I put on the armor and carried the hammer. Everything was done. I took the poor girl and ran to the castle. I was surprised of what I saw. A crowd was standing angry outside the castle, and Captain Aldous was talking them away. Once the people saw and recognized me, they made way for me to pass. It was kind of them. Most of them are fans who witnessed the incident. Surprisingly enough, Jorna was there as well as Scotty, who was talking directly to Captain Aldous. Glad you are here. Say something to calm that angry mob quickly. Captain Aldous got close and whispered to me. Hee. Witness the power of controlling the public opinion. Thank you everyone for coming here. I raised my voice and spoke. I will go in with good Captain Aldous now and will get my brothers out. You staying here will support us even more. Thank you very much. I looked at Captain Aldous, whose face turned pale from what I just said. I was resisting my laughter so bad. Did he think I won't take advantage? The people cheered, and done as I said, they waited. Captain Aldous walked into the castle and I followed him. I told Sviti to wait outside with Jorna and asked Scotty to come with me. Captain Aldous looked at who followed him, then said, Why is Scotty following? We are relatives, I said. Far relatives, actually. Captain Aldous' eyes widened and noticed the similarities between us. Scotty, on the other hand, was taken by surprise, yet she covered her expressions by a fake cough. Look, the situation is a bit hard and you worsened it, Captain Aldous said. I'm going to say this just in respect for Captain Scotty, but some powerful people are using this incident to hinder your team's progress in the duels. Most of the early bets were against your team, and these people are losing a lot of money. Even if powerful people were involved, one cannot just simply put pressure on Solitude guards, unless... Scotty halted for a second, then said, What's going on, Aldous? It's shameful to say it, but we are being pressured by many sides. The gambling houses are pulling every string in favor they have. Your swift win against a strong team today probably made them worry. This was just self-defense, even if someone died. Witnesses can prove the aggressor's hostility reached the point that weapons were raised with the intent to kill. All rights of self-defense belong to the victim of the aggression, and the death of the aggressor was not direct, it was due bleeding, which means the defense itself didn't carry the intent to kill. How can anyone accept such a ridiculous reason? I spoke my inner lawyer. Your words speak truth, but I've got my hands tied. Only the High King can pardon them without the normal regulations. And now is late night. Even I can't be granted an audience. He said, High King Torg is just. He will free them right away once he hears of it tomorrow. If you are lucky, he will hear of it and set them free right before the match. This attack is a setup itself. Scotty was angry and made a scary face. If something happened to the boys, my clan won't leave this matter aside. Captain Aldous backed away and raised his hands to calm her down. Relax, I didn't put them in a cell. It was just a room me and my most trusted man can go into. Also, Clan Battleborn sent the same warning. Can I see them? I said. Of course, follow me. Captain Aldous walked inside the jail. As I walked, I took the chance to memorize the layout of the jail. As we reached a room, Captain Aldous walked in and we followed. Inside was John Battleborn sitting looking to space and Wolfer coming and going. When they saw me, they halted what they were doing and stared at me. I just leave you for a day and you guys go to prison. TCH, I said. I am going to leave for a year after the tourney, you know. Yeah, like you would have let those attackers go. Battleborn replied. I may have broke some bones or took an eye out, you know, being light-handed. I said. You see, Wolfer here followed your teachings and killed a man with a slap. Battleborn said. The man took the slap and kissed into a wall. He went unconscious, but no one noticed was bleeding until guards came to carry him. Killing a man with a slap, that's a mighty deed, big man. Sovngarde is recruiting, I said. Wolfer, who looked gloomy, smiled lightly and said, Sviti? Outside the castle with Jorna. I mentioned Jorna to buff his morale. What will happen now? Battleborn asked. You'll get out, but the situation is like this. I told him the details of my conversation with Captain Aldous. RDS. I bet they sent these people to set us up. Battleborn was in a bad mood after hearing what happened. Who are we should fight tomorrow? I asked. I don't remember the match's setup. And I deleted the note that had the tournament data by mistake. I made another one based on memory and packed it up. Team Wolffangs, Scotty said. Thane Eriker's team. I said, then looked at Captain Aldous. I bet he's behind this. Captain Aldous made an uneasy face and didn't reply. Eriker was one of the most annoying NPCs, same grade as Nazim in my opinion. Beating up his team tomorrow will be fun. Still, I need these guys out. It seems I can't get you out now, but be patient. I'll do what I can. I said that and went out with Scotty and Captain Aldous. He asked me to solve the problem I made with the crowd outside. I was having another plan, though. Outside the castle, a crowd stood and on top of it was Sviti and Jorna. I could only assure them about the well-being of Wolfer and Battleborn. The crowd looked at me waiting for me to say something, and so I did. My brothers are locked inside, and the reason is pretty simple. Someone doesn't want them out. Someone doesn't want my team to participate tomorrow. Someone wants to hinder our progress. I don't know who is that someone, but he picked the wrong team to mess up with. I will remain here until the sunrise and will be the first to enter the arena. If that time came and I could bring no justice to my brothers, then by a smear I'll face whatever they throw at me alone. Who's with me? The people cheered with their blood boiling. They didn't look like a peaceful demonstration, but an angry warband. Well, they'll do their purpose. I sat near on the ground the gate and other people sat. Others went home to bring food and others slept where they sat. Some people came and joined us. By the time I closed my eyes to take a little rest and woke up, I could feel the sun on my face. The sight front of me has changed and I could see more people. More than before I sleep. Maybe a bit more than needed. Okawaye. I underestimated the people in this world. This is clearly more than what the arena can take. I could see Captain Aldous standing behind the gate with the urge to cry. Scotty was standing next to me. You'll make Hilda proud? I think this is just something that went too well. An hour later, the castle gates opened, and we went inside. The people found their places around the arena, and I jumped on it. I looked around, and no teams has arrived yet, so I took a chair to the middle of the arena, sat on it, put the hammer on its head, and crossed my arms. Now, let's wait for Torrig. Few minutes later, the teams arrived, and some of the Jarls too, who didn't know what was going on, asked and understood the situation. Torrig wasn't here yet. The 5 members of Team Wolffangs arrived, but even Erikr wasn't here. What was going on? Both Torrig and Erikr are late. Falk Firebeard, the steward of the High King, arrived and said something to Viarmo. Viarmo stood and announced that the High King will be late due to some court issues, and he will arrive later. Most of the people understood that the High King was being delayed by someone. Dirty. So I will participate alone against 5. The first match will be Team White Wolves against Team Wolffangs. Due to some complications, only one participant of Team White Wolves will be on the arena. The matches will be one-on-one. Team White Wolves participant will have to face the 5 participants of Team Wolffangs one after the other, Viarmo announced. The people went into uproar after they heard him. John was still sitting on the chair in the middle of the arena. No one blamed his behavior, as he was clearly in a bad mood. The crowd looked at John with pity. 5 against 1 will be a hard and a long match, even for a genius like John. The story of what happened yesterday spread far and wide, except for a certain disappointment of a king. The judge entered the arena and called for the opponent to come up. John was still sitting. The opponent was a dual axe user. He looked at John with disdain and waved his axes around. John still didn't stand. The boy frowned and wasn't satisfied with John's reaction, or rather no reaction. He ran towards John in order to intimidate him, yet when John showed no reaction, the opponent ran faster and jumped with his axes raised high as he planned to slash them down at John. Right when he was midair, John hastily moved up and met the flying opponent with a punch. It landed directly on the neck. The boy, who was flying, crashed to the ground in a bad shape while coughing violently. John was not done yet. He went back to his hammer and dredged it back. The judge wanted to say something, but he saw John carry the hammer with one hand over the opponent's head and let it drop. The opponent, who was already out of breath, went directly to dreamland. John quietly picked up the hammer, sat back on the chair. He then rested his right foot on his defeated foe. All of that happened in a few seconds, so the crowd around the arena took some time to recover from the shock. This was absolute dominance. Some of the VIP shook their heads from how arrogant youth can be. Some nodded with satisfaction, and some were having dark expressions. Elisif, who came without Torrig, was covering her mouth with a hand from the brutal encounter. The other participants, who most of them has faced John, had some mixed emotions about this, but mostly they were cheering for John. John looked like the harbinger of death, and his hammer that was blunt on a side and has a spike on the other was akin to his scythe. The defeated opponent should be moved from the arena, but everyone forgot about that. The second opponent jumped into the arena shouting at John, telling him to remove his foot from his brother. John only smiled faintly back. The boy, who was a sword and shield user, raised his shield ahead of himself and ran towards John while roaring. John held the hammer properly this time and rotated around himself 360 degrees. Just as the opponent arrived, John's hammer was already welcoming the shield. A high-pitched ting sounded out, followed by the sound of something getting broken. The shield appeared to be fine, but the boy, who was already on the ground, started wailing while holding his left shoulder. John refused to show mercy and grabbed the other arm of his opponent, twisted his right leg around it, stomped tightly to the ground, and twisted his whole posture this time. This was an otherworldly shoulder dislocating technique. From Aikido, I guess. Did I say it right? The boy screamed from agony and had no will to resist. John sent him to dreamland with a stomp on the face. The crowd didn't make any sound this time. This was a punishment event hosted by John. If you don't want to watch, then just look away. Like that was even an option. John sat back with a faint sadistic smile on his face. It caused people with weak hearts to tremble. The remaining members of Wolffangs were angry. That was too much in their heart, yet it was within the rules, mostly. The one who came in the arena next was huffing in anger. He was a huge 2 meters meat tower covered by plate armor. His weapon was a large battle axe. The third opponent was controlled by anger. Even though he was this heavy, he was known as the main participant of Team Wolffangs, Igvar the Feral. As the Feral ran towards John with frightening speed, not suiting his weight, people were already expecting a match, yet who knew what John was thinking? John didn't carry the hammer or anything. He just summoned a spell on each hand and started shooting them. These spells were not direct attack spells. They only caused runes to appear under Igvar's feet. Once he stepped on the first rune, lightning exploded out of it, and the second runes exploded after it was touched too. One must know that lightning magic and heavy armor are the worst combination ever. Igvar took one shock damage after another during his charge. Suddenly he fell and started rolling towards John. John wasn't merciful and spammed a rune after the other. The more Igvar rolls, the more runes explode. Igvar kept rolling until John's feet and his helmet fell from his head. What appeared was a foaming, ugly face. John rested his right foot on the new footstool. The crowd that was expecting a fight discovered that John didn't even get up from the chair this time. The show of punishment was still on. The VIP were in a loss for words. Where did such a junior emerge from? So, Nurina's son can be as lawless as her. Faralda in the VIP seats murmured to herself. Who is Nurina? Someone asked. All heads in the VIP area was looking at Faralda. They all were demanding an answer. Nurina Aran, arch-wizard and head of the conjuration major in the College of Winterhold. She is his adoptive mother. Faralda was puffing her chest, showing off with her niece's hair. An Egyptian item for those who show off with stuff they don't have. It's Kaled. The Baldy is showing off with her niece's hair. The VIP area gasped in a fight and saw John in a new light. He was an arrogant youngster with a scary background, the son of an arch-wizard. Still 3 were down, 2 to go. Chapter 29. The Round of 16 Part 2. What's the plan? What was an arch-wizard? In this world, arch-wizard are real powerhouses. Their title represents wealth and authority, but before any of that, it represents personal strength. An arch-wizard in any school of magic can turn the tides of strategic or political battlefields with only making appearance. An arch-conjuration wizard can summon a small army and can afford to fight alongside it and keep its numbers. An arch-destruction wizard is akin to a natural disaster. Stuff turn into cinder in his path. An arch-alteration wizard can manipulate, protect, and do all incomprehensible magics. An arch-illusion wizard can put a city to sleep or make it disappear. An arch-restoration wizard can aid an army of mortals to do his bidding or destroy hordes of undead. And right in front of them was a younger who was the successor of one. Not just his background was scary, his magical and martial prowesses are beyond his age. This identity revealing made those who had ill intent towards John chase away these ideas as if they chase away rats. Now they were pitying the fools who made things difficult for him. Everyone was looking at the remaining 2 boys of Team Wolffangs. John was also looking at them with his newly developed sadistic smile. The 2 were in distress. Going against that mad dog after what their sponsor has done is a suicidal idea. The other problem was if they surrounded in this fight without their sponsor's approval, they might get no money, and people will brand them as cowards. Scotty, on the other hand, was witnessing a scary side of her long-lost nephew. The innocent-looking Jorna was reliving a trauma, but Sviti, who witnessed John's wrath before, wasn't surprised. At the VIP area, hurried footsteps could be heard from the back stairs. Who appeared was the supposed-to-be hero who would bring justice to the oppressed team. High King Torig, followed by Erikr, a Thane and an owner of a large gambling business. Told you to stop yapping about worthless stuff. Let's catch the first match, Bifo. Torig was trying to look as much dignified as possible while trying not to start running, yet he halted. My king, I bet the match has already finished. Thane Erikr said, Team Wolffangs is. What in oblivion is that? Normally everyone would stand up for the king, yet no one was giving a skeevers but about who just came in, as Torig entered and noticed that he followed the line of sight of the spectators and halted his speech. Erikr, who followed few steps behind, did the same, but with a different reaction. Torig wanted to ask, but he looked at the benches and found a place between Elisif and Jarl Idgrod. He sat and close to Elisif. Eli, what's going on? He whispered. "Shut up now." Elisif, the gentlewoman who looks away when there is violence and hates the arena, was so focused that she shooed away her king and husband with her hand. Torrig was shocked, but the scene on the arena was too mysterious, so he won't think about her action. He looked at Jarl Idgrod. Jarl Idgrod did. He was about to say something. "After the match, we need to talk." She interrupted him without pity. He finally understood that he messed somewhere. Falk Firebeard, the good steward, didn't want his king to look clueless, so he approached him from behind and whispered about the events and highlighted Eriker's scheme. During this, Torrig expressions were smiling, then wondering, the taken aback, then wowing, and finally glaring at Eriker. Eriker, on the other hand, was breathing flames from the sight in front of him. His team of juniors that he gathered and honed was crushed single-handedly by John in an unsightly manner. John's arrogant appearance added to the flame, and he was reaching the limits. John was watching what's going on in the VIP with half of his eyes. His focus was still on the two opponents that didn't want to go up. He was starting to get bored as the more he waited, the more he started to cool down. He suddenly had an idea and stood up. "I see that this is going to end quickly with nothing we can call a fight. So, I came up with something." He talked to the opponents. "I'll give you guys a good chance. I won't use magic against you, or even a weapon. Furthermore, I'll take you on both at the same time." The crowd came into another uproar. This was going to be interpreting. The last two opponents started thinking about it. They have a better chance, but that could be a trap, and if they lost, it would be unsightly. John wasn't afraid of anything. Eriker was dirty, yet he wasn't the same Eriker from the game who owned half Solitude. He's wealthy, but can be put down. John winning this tournament is already a good enough setback for Eriker. Eriker looked at the two and signaled for them to move. He was thinking, after getting this far, don't think of walking out of it alive. Your head alone, let alone the rest of you, team worth 3/4 of the bets. The last two were brothers. They both used spears. John walked away from the chair, and the three unconscious fellows around it. As bestoked, he was already facing the other two together. This match has already gone up and beyond the rules. It was rigged, yet for some reason, everyone was satisfied with the way it headed. Except, of course, for those who were losing money. The round started, and the two didn't rush like the offs, but chose to take the sides and planned a pincer attack like that. John wasn't showing any expressions, but took an open hand stance and made the same posture from his last barehanded match against Argir. All the experts around the arena longed to see that style once again. First spear came to John from his left. John guided it away with his left hand and rotated himself under the spear with a kick to the opponent on the left. The kick landed and the opponent felt its weight and power. Even though he was protected by armor, the pain went through vividly. Next attack came at John from the front, but John avoided aside and didn't counter. The opponent stabbed again and again, but John was only jumping left and right nimble. Few people noticed what's wrong. John was avoiding while advancing. His opponent was attacking while retreating. This was another level of dominance in the eyes of some experts. Once John approached enough, he held the spear and pulled the opponent closer with it. After that, it was a kick buffet. John trained himself in martial arts from his memories of movies. His techniques were veer showy and had a stylish manner. Especially the slabbing coming-going kicks on his opponent's face made the crowd feel excited. The first opponent, who was recovering from the strong kick, stood and charged at John. John was keeping an eye on him all the time, though. John held the opponent under his mercy from his legs and swung him 2 circles, then launched him at the opponent who was starting to charge. That scene was supposed to be seen in an in-brawl, but it was all good and fine for the hyped spectators. The other opponent, on the other hand, saw the unsightly disfigured face of his brother and sank into despair. He barely could avoid the brother he grew up with a hair's width. Concealed behind his brother, who flied to the rest of the unconscious team, was a kick from John. He took received on the it and lost his helmet and his spear in the process. After getting some balance, he wanted to hurry away to his team's test place. He now was only thinking of a shield. John saw his opponent running away to his chair's area. He was making this view carefully and finally gathered 4 foes around the chair. He couldn't let anyone ruin his artistic work. John looked around and all he could find was a spear, an iron helmet, some teeth, and blood. He found a good idea and backed down few steps, looked at his opponent, and ran few steps, then kicked something. The helmet on the ground was kicked like a soccer ball towards the running opponent's head. It collided with a crashing sound and made the opponent crush the ground face-on. He was just beside his teammates. John snorted and looked proud with his handiwork. All he regretted was that no one caught that on camera. He would definitely show it to Nurina. He walked slowly to the chair in the middle of the 5 victims of his, rested his 2 feet over Igvar's body, and made an arrogant appearance once again. He then looked at the judge and waved his hand. The judge didn't know what to do. He looked at Viarmo, but Viarmo hasn't spoken for some time now, and only shrugged his shoulders, then pointed to Torig. Torig saw that and was thinking what to say, but Elisif has already moved. She looked at the judge and nodded. This was the approval of Lady Elisif in the presence of the High King, which meant it's from the High King. The judge cleared his throat and shouted, "The winner is Team White Wolves." The people's reaction to these words was perfect. They cheered and made all sort of weird winning poses. Most of them were the people who came in with John. John, however, kept sitting on the chair and looked with no expression to the VIP seats. He still isn't done. Eriker was going mad from what happened. He lost a huge amount of money, and 2 years of hard working and planning were erased just like that. This hateful youngster and this naive Lady Elisif were ganging up on him. Idgrod Ravencrone, Jarl of Morthal, gave Torig an earful of words about how he was easily manipulated by Eriker and how the poor boy in the arena fought for justice that he should have served. Torig wanted to find a hole and bury himself. Idgrod was one of the Jarls he can't retort at. He hurriedly summoned Captain Aldous and ordered that John Battleborn and Wulfer would be set free, and added 3 gifts from his personal armory. That was quite the fun. I was a bit angry, but it all went well. Unlike other places, Skyrim values boldness and honor. If I did what I did in High Rock, I don't think I would have survived with it. Wulfer and Battleborn came out ready to play a match to find that the party was already over. Still, having 3 gifts from the king was a good gain. 3 scaled upper body armor like the ones in the game, enchanted with resist magic. This is light, flexible, and sturdy. I took a liking to it right away, and I'll wear it from the next match. Scotty told me she would take care of Eriker if he made trouble. I started telling her about his plan to monopolize business in Solitude, and said it's from a valid source. She assured me that her clan will overthrow him from the king's court in no time. That's a peace of mind to me. By the times the dragons return, he'll be a very annoying personality in Solitude. He also is making business with the Thalmor. I made sure to tell that to Scotty. Next matches were as follows. Team Great Bear versus Team Stormcloaks. The Stormcloaks won. This team has the very first NPC the players talks to in the game, Ralof of Riverwood. These 2 teams came from Thexham City and sponsored by Ulfric. Companion's second team, led by Vilkas versus Team White Plains of Whiterun. The Companions won. Team Warmaidens of Whiterun, sponsored by the biggest weapons shop in Whiterun, and the team was Full Girls team led by Lydia herself. They went against Team Golden City of Markarth and won a glorious match. Getting the chance to see the young Lydia was amazing. I really am interested in my most basic NPC follower background. Golden Swords, led by Argir and sponsored by Torig, went against Companion's first team, led by Farkas. It was a heated match, but Argir won after a long clash with Farkas. Team Snow Bears of Windhelm versus Team Cross Daggers of Rift Inn. Team Snow Bears won. Now Big Bad Ulfric has 2 teams in the quarterfinals. Disappointingly enough, Team Arcana Wisdom of the College went against Team Black Snow of the Blackbriar and Snowshod clans. The college made a show of power and won with a style. That was the end of the day to me. I went straight to the inn and wanted to jump into bed, yet someone knocked on my door. "You have a guest." The inn girl informed me, and I went down with her. Who was waiting for me was Rusning. He stood and said, "Follow me out." Outside the inn he stopped and faced me. "Someone came for me and offered me a handsome amount of money for your head," he said. "You should have taken the money." I said as if I am joking, but this was really serious. "I did," he said, "but only half. I'll receive the other half once the deed is done." "Oh." I narrowed my eyes and said, "And what are you planning to do? You killed those 3 from few days ago, right? This boy will keep sending people after you. Why don't you do something about him?" Rusning said and smiled. "So, what's the plan?" Chapter 30, Quarterfinals. In an alleyway, three figures stood together under the cover of darkness and were discussing something. "I am sorry, there are bad rumors about you in our district. The three guys that died were said to be on a job for you." A voice spoke. "What are you talking about? I pay you and you do whatever I want you to do. Why do you care about any of that?" Another voice replied. "There is a limit on what we can do, even for a Blackbriar." A reply came. "Especially when our lives are on the line? You coward, don't talk to Master Sibi with that too." Another voice interrupted, but halted when he heard footsteps. "Who's there?" he said. No reply came. A figure appeared and walked slowly to the three figures. One of the three drew out a sword and the other two drew daggers. The moon's light fell on the approaching figure and made his features clear. "Oh, it's the mage I hired." He came back. One of the three, who appeared to be Sibi Blackbriar, spoke. The mage approached, but he started staggering. Then he fell on one knee, and from it fell completely on the ground. The three were taken aback. What they saw on the mage's back was a dagger sinking into it. Panic started to take over, and the three started feeling movements around themselves. From up, a strange bird landed on a rooftop. It looked like a spectral owl. "Gee, ghost." The ruffian that Sibi was hiring panicked even more, which made Sibi and his bodyguard to fall into panic too. This was not a usual sight to see. Spectre birds were a bad omen in this part of the land. Another spectral figure appeared. It was of a girl wearing robes, a hood, and holding a dagger. This spectral girl came from behind the dead mage. The panicking trio were struck with fear and tried to run to the other side. Yet they came to a quick halt. On the other end of the alleyway, two more spectral girls with the same description walked into the alley and stood there. "What is that? Why are there so many ghosts? What's happening?" Sibi spoke as if he was about to cry. They wanted to act, but suddenly they heard the sound of air breaking. An arrow flew towards the bodyguard and pierced his neck. Blood splashes dyed his surroundings as the bodyguard fell on his back, struggling his last breaths out. Sibi, who saw the blood flying everywhere and even reached his face, could stand no more. As he fell to the side, the three spectral girls jumped on the ruffian and started stabbing him. A bloody scene was happening as the short specters filled the man with holes. As they stopped, they turned to Sibi, who started crying and begging for his life. They surrounded him and did nothing. Sibi was pale as fear controlled every inch of his being. Footsteps could be heard from the dead mage's direction. Sibi looked to see a figure clad in a black cloak holding a bow in his hand. Sibi knew this was the archer that killed his bodyguard, and the one who made the ambush. The figure stopped by the dead mage's body and stretched his hand. Ahora's voice sounded. "I call upon the ancient powers of oblivion to bring forth this dead and raise a zombie." Sibi was terrorized. These were some evil words that meant dealing with undead. He could only say necromancer. The dead mage's corpse started to move and stood up in a spooky manner, making weird voices. The necromancer looked at Sibi and walked slowly towards him. The undead mage was following in a weird walk. Sibi started apologizing and begging for his life. Yet the necromancer snorted in disdain. "That's an appearance suitable for a Blackbriar," the necromancer said, and removed his hood. Sibi looked at the necromancer in a daze. He was shaken and suffering from conflict and emotions. The necromancer, who was naturally John, crouched down to see Sibi face to face. "In the game, you used to be an arrogant asshole, but you were not a coward," John said, and continued, "Why are you so persistent on killing me?" Sibi was recovering from his shock, yet fear was already playing him. He looked at John with mixed expressions of fear and hate. He didn't answer John. "Forgot about him. You already played with him long enough." A voice came from the undead mage. It was supposed to be dead, but now it's talking. Sibi, who was reliving a trauma, was shocked again. He started pointing at the mage and murmuring, You was dead?" The mage, who was Rusning, removed the dagger from his back. "That's just a hilt." So, it was like this?" Sibi already understood he was being played. "Yeah, it's like that," John said, stood and flicked his fingers. As he did that, the spectral girls disappeared. "Show is over, you can leave," John said. "What?" Rusning and Sibi were surprised as they looked at John. "No, really, you can leave this way, just go," John said while pulling Sibby and making him stand. Sibby stood in a daze, not moving yet. John took out another arrow, and with the bow on his left he aimed at Sibby. Go. Sibby jumped in fright and started running to the end of the alleyway. John smiled evilly and pulled the bowstring, then let go. The arrow flew after Sibby and pierced his neck. The Lannisters send their regards. John just wanted to say that. Little did he know that there were a prying pair of eyes watching not far from the shadows. The spectral figures were Conjure Undead, Ghost, Star, Tonight, one of the most annoying people on Nirn, and the heir to the Blackbriar Empire was sent to oblivion by me. I don't think Maven will leave this matter alone. She will look under every rock for the killer. I am not really afraid of her. If I let Sibby live, he'll keep sending killers after me. If Maven knew, she'll also send killers after me. At least she may not know, so I'll be at peace for now. After the deed was done, I put some final touches on the crime scene, erased any evidence, and went back to the inn with Rusning, who changed back into his college clothes. Rusning asked me why did I have to trick Sibby and kill him this way. Actually, it was for the fun, but I made a logical answer that if all victims were dead in one place, this will tell that they were ambushed, and I wanted it to look like a fight and robbery. We found a big coin purse on the bodyguard. That was clearly Rusning's last half of the payment. He gave it to me, 200 golden septims. The relationship between me and Rusning was not known to the public, so we had to make an appearance in the inn as an alibi and made a small scene. I don't know how good are the criminal investigations in this world, as Rift Inn had nothing like that, but clearly, Solitude guards will at least ask questions, and Maven will use her influence. After an apple pie and some mead, I saw Rusning off and headed back to bed. I have only 4 hours before the match starts. Today's matches are only 4: White Wolves versus Stormcloaks, Companions' second team versus War Maidens, Golden Swords versus Companions' first team, Snow Bears versus Arcana Wisdom. The Stormcloaks led by Ralof, a young Nord same age as me, an NPC and the first person the player talks to in the game. Today, I was wearing the armor that was gifted to me by the king. It was enchanted, so Wulfur had to make some adjustments to it very carefully under my guidance. Wulfur and Battleborn wore theirs too. Now, we looked like a team. As the stage was already to its fill, Viarmo made his introductions, and my team, as well as the Stormcloaks, were already on the arena. Their style was similar to each other and very organized, an axe and a shield to all the 5 members. 2 members went away and 3 remained. Ralof, the main participant, went out. I could see the one to drain us first. This might not work on me or Battleborn, but Wulfur's shield is too heavy. Wulfur, once one of them is down, take his shield. This fight will be long, I said. He nodded and rotated his flail. Battleborn took his pose and I took mine. John, Wulfur, and Battleborn made their usual formation. The 3 opponents made a shield-up pose and stood their ground, as their plan was to drain the White Wolves' stamina as much as possible and let them for Ralof to weed them out. Wulfur advanced with his heavy shield on front, and his teammates took flanks. The 3 opponents still stood their groups. Just as the distance closed, the 2 Jaunts suddenly broke the formation and ran to the sides of the opponents, who moved their shields to face them. Out of nowhere, a large shadow was seen flying. The opponents, who were focused on the 2 Jaunts' distraction, didn't notice what was thrown at them. In an alleyway, 3 figures stood together under the cover of darkness and were discussing something. It was the High Dam, Wulfur's oversized heavy shield. As it fell, one of the opponents were caught off guard and took the hit hard, falling down with it. John took the chance and kicked his head. The boy went unconscious, confirming the first fall into the Stormcloaks team. Wulfur didn't take his shield but took the fallen opponents. The arena cheered and another opponent went in. Ralof was still out. 3 went against 3, but each 2 took each other. Nothing creative happened, and it was the normal theme in these matches. John's opponent's axe was fast and his attacks were performed skillfully. John liked to dodging over blocking, as he can act nimbly while his opponent is depleting his own stamina on his own. If the opponent understood and slowed down, John would always find a way to bring his opponent down. The opponent was slowing and his footwork started to crumble. Just as John saw that, he attacked a full circle with a low posture. The hammer landed on the opponent's left foot from the side, pushing it to the right one and taking the opponent to the ground. As he fell, John raised Agniare and hammered from above downwardly to the opponent who was lying defenseless. All the poor boy could do was to abandon the axe and hold the shield up with 2 hands. But that was of a little use. The hammer hit the shield and pressed it to the opponent's chest. He couldn't take it and coughed blood. The cold-hearted crowd cheered for it. This was the end of his part as the judge signaled. Suddenly, another noise erupted from the crowd as it appears that something happened again. John looked around to see Dragonborn being blown away and someone rushing. Ralof, after his teammate fell, and his turn came, made a shield rush and headed towards Dragonborn, who didn't notice him. Dragonborn was blown away by the rush, and John, who noticed, tried to move, but the opponent he hit just now was clutching to the hammer tightly. So, you can still do that. John thought, fine. If you like my hammer, then let's exchange. John acted quickly. He let go of the hammer and snatched the shield of his opponent. Ralof's rush was getting close and John didn't stand up yet. Yet he rotated quickly facing Ralof and met him with a low posture. Ralof and John collided, but John's left hand only supported the shield while his right found a grip on Ralod's body and pulled him from it. As the right grabbed and pulled while the left held the shield and pushed, John strengthened his stance and carried Ralof over himself from a side and threw him to the other. The crowd cheered at the exchange, yet John was still worried about Dragonborn. He looked at him to find his opponent was closing on him while he was still on the ground. John looked around and found an axe from the fallen opponent. He hastily took it and threw it at Dragonborn's opponent. The opponent took it to his shield but looked like he was injured with it. More importantly, it gave Dragonborn a chance to recover. John looked at Ralof to find him already recovered and going straight not to John but to Wulfr. Seems like their plan was to remove John's allies, then outnumbering him. It was a good plan. John kicked the ground and rushed barehanded after Ralof. He activated a spell and dual casted in both hands. A green light surrounded him and he ran like a flash of green light. This was by no means a human speed. This spell was hasten. It granted the caster a high buff in speed. John ran with insane speed and jumped with a kick at Ralof. Ralof could only look back to see something closing with an insane speed at his face. Alas, there was no time to dodge. The flying kick rammed Ralof's head and sent him flying to a fair distance. John, who was flying, crashed in a bad shape. His speed was just too insane. This exchanges of blocking Ralof's charge, rescuing Dragonborn and chasing Ralof in an insane speed happened in less than 10 seconds. The crowd was recovering from a surprise to receive the next, and they were 3. A loud cheer erupted for Ralof's plan and John's multitasking. Even though John relied on magic as the last resort, he still made a great show. You relied on magic after all? Ralof stood up while staggering and holding his head. Don't get cocky. You were the one who got kicked like a doll. John was also staggering and holding the arm he fell on. Let's end this with your style then. Ralof threw away his axe and shield. He, as many others, craved to try his luck against John's barehanded style. John massaged his arm and walked to Ralof, who raised his arms in a brawling pose and wanted to throw punches. Just as John reached a good distance, he kicked with his right leg to Ralof's head. Ralof could foresee this and moved his head back to dodge. The kick passed and John returned it, but what no one could foresee was how his right changed trajectory into a sidekick in Ralof's torso. Ralof resisted the kick and moved his left leg back to support himself. John took his legs back, then jumped at Ralof. His left leg landed on Ralof's right leg and grabbed Ralof's head with 2 hands. What came next was John's right knee striking into Ralof's face. Ralof fell unconscious due to the impact. On the spectators' seats, a young Imperial Soldier shouted for Ralof to wake up, but no avail. In the end, Dragonborn and Wulfr brought their opponents down easily. The match ended and the judge announced the win of Team White Wolves and their advance to the semifinals. John healed himself and offered help to Ralof and his team. Ralof was holding his chin and waving to someone in the crowd. It was that young Imperial soldier. John, who was walking behind him, asked, "Someone you know?" "Yes, that's my friend from home." Ralof talked. "His name is Hadvar. He joined the Legion to protect Skyrim and I followed Jarl Ulfric as my hero." Ralof was taking proud about the paths they both chose. John, on the other hand, shivered from what he heard. He looked between Hadvar and Ralof and couldn't help but make a sad face. The future he knows will happen will be tough. Yet he didn't know should he interfere or not. After this match, a surprise happened and Team Warmaidens, led by Lydia, won against Companion's second team, led by Vilkas. Team Golden Swords, led by Argir, won an easy fight against Morthal's Dreamcatchers, the lucky team that only met weak teams. Team Arcana Wisdom, led by Rusning, won against Team Snow Bears of Windhelm. Big Bad Ulfric lost his last two teams in the quarterfinals. The semifinals are now between Team White Wolves against Team Warmaidens and Team Golden Swords against Team Arcana Wisdom. Chapter 31, Semifinals Part 1. Many big thanks for Alex Martz for his donation on. Pray for him to have a Dragonborn grade harem and go to Sovngarde. 2 bounce chapters will be posted this week. Ralof and Hadvar, 2 of the first NPCs that the player interacts with at the first scene in Helgen. The player walked to his execution as a prisoner with other war prisoners. Ralof is one of them. Hadvar, on the other hand, is one of the Imperial officers overseeing the execution. After the events that led to the failure of the execution due to Helgen being under dragon attack, the player chooses to either escape with Ralof or Hadvar. The choice has no effect on the game whatsoever, but it affects the survival of those 2 NPCs. If the player escaped with one, the other will die. These 2 are from the same village of Riverwood, and that is a common knowledge for all players. And now I am being told that these guys are actually best friends and they support each other's choice. But at the escape, they encounter each other. Hadvar calls Ralof a traitor and hopes that the dragon takes Ralof and his allies all to Sovngarde. It's sad, but I can't do anything about it. Not just yet anyway. I have still not decided what to do about the future civil war, as it one of the most important turning points of the history of Skyrim. While thinking about that and watching the remaining matches, I could notice Maven Blackbriar in the VIP seats looking around at the seats. He will not be coming, old witch. I couldn't see Hemming or Isgir Snowshod either. They must be out there searching for Sibi. About the time the matches ended, Isgir Snowshod came and looked pale-faced. He looked at his father Vulwolf and whispered something. Then he and his father walked to Maven and talked to her. Maven started raising her voice and the VIP seats started to look messy. The people noticed and started to ask around. Some rumors started to fly around. Sibi Blackbriar was killed in a robbery. Was found dead in an alleyway. Killed by robbers. I guess my redecoration for the alleyway last night was good enough. Now the main suspects are Solitude ruffians. If they investigated Sibi's enemies such as me, or came looking for trouble, then that's another story. But at least they will investigate me. So I made a solid alibi with Rusning. Speaking of Rusning, he wasn't looking well. This guy seemed like he never took a life before, so I think he was nervous. The noise in the VIP area was not coming down anytime soon, and it seemed the Torig has ordered the guards to dismiss the people. I returned to the inn. Wulfur and Battleborn, who didn't know what happened, were taken aback by the news. I didn't tell them just yet for a good reason. Guards came to the inn and questioned all the participants lodging there, including us, of course. This is why I said nothing to them, as they were not as shameless as me. They might start sweating from the first question. Well, after the guards left, night came and I could tell them everything. They didn't mind me killing Sibi, but for me to lie about it with a smile was just too much for them. They looked at me with disdain the whole day. I also told them if there is to be a funeral, then I'll be going. This was their limit. They never spoke with me the rest of the day. Killed the man and walked his funeral. This is an Egyptian proverb about shameless evildoers, and I am going to apply it literally. Still, we had to make preparations for tomorrow. We are going against Lydia and her team Warmaidens, a team made of girls, and for some reason I am worried. Why am I worried, you ask? Well, I have 2 manly Nords with me who will most likely are not good at hitting girls. I made sure they don't underestimate Team Warmaidens and made some strategies with them. At night, I went out and made an extra precaution. I hid the stuff I looted from Sibi in the manhole I used to access Solitude sewers. I will take them out in the big day. The next day we went to the arena at the usual time. I could hear many people still talking about the events from yesterday. The VIP seats were full except for Maven and Vulwolf. They naturally did not attend after what happened. Viarmo announced the events of today's matches. He also announced the incident from yesterday to the people, and also announced that the Blackbriars are offering handsome rewards for anyone who gives of information that leads to the arrest of the culprit. After he said that the matches started, I with my gang were on the arena against Lydia and two other girls. There were other two girls outside. Lydia and her team were all sword and shield users. Most girls use that style. John on the left with his hammer, Wolfer on the middle, but he carried a hammer like John this time, and Battleborn was on the right with his sword. The plan was simple: overwhelm the opponent. Lydia and her team were very resilient, and their winning to this point was due to three factors. They always stood in defense, they have good teamwork, and they are always underestimated and seen as lucky. With the judge's signal, three boys made their moves as if they were unleashed wolves. Lydia shouted for her team to defend, and they stood together tightly. Wolfer crashed into the shield wall with all his weight. The girls could feel like a mammoth was crashing into them, but what happened next was a bit too unlucky for them. John, who lessened his speed in the last second, jumped on Wolfer's back, then jumped over him once he crashed into the shield wall. The girls could feel a shadow flying over them. As they looked over, they could see a flying John. Retreat, Lydia commanded and made a hasty order. She could see John landing and ready his hammer for a big swing. Lydia and the girl on the other side could run to different directions. The girl on the middle, however, tried to run, but she couldn't. Her shield was held by Wolfer. She looked at him, and he said, "That's his plan." Sorry? Yes, that was John's plan. Wolfer and Battleborn won't hit girls seriously, but John had no problem with that. All they had to do was to pin down the girls, and John will do the dead. He swung the hammer at the girl, and she was sent flying. She screamed from the pain of John's swing. Wolfer, Battleborn, the crowd, and the VIP looked at John with cold eyes. This was a girl. How can he just hit like that? Lydia and the other girl shouted the name of their teammate. John clearly didn't take gender into consideration. Also, he didn't stop after one hit. He made sure that the girl stays down, then moved to another opponent. The judge announced that the opponent was down, and her team can send another substitution. Before a substitution could enter, the three boys moved like wolves to trap the other girl. Ganging on one. How shameless. Lydia rushed at them, but one of the boys blocked her. That was Battleborn. "Long time no see, Lydia. Didn't think I would see you here," Battleborn said. They seemed to know each other, but Lydia didn't reply and attacked with a stab. Battleborn was to stall her until John and Wolfer finished the other girls. Two fights were going on, Battleborn against Lydia, while John and Wolfer were chasing the other girls. Lydia broke free from Battleborn and headed directly to John. John had already taken another girl down, which means Team Warmaidens has no substitutions left. Now take them one-on-one. Don't be so damn shy and hit them, John shouted at his teammates as he already achieved the first phase of his plan. He didn't want the other team to have more members than his, or it will cause his team to lose stamina early. Lydia and John met head-on. John looked at the angry Lydia and noticed her facial features. Dark hair, green eyes, saber-like brows, she was a beauty. This was due to the effect of the mod Bejeen Warmaidens. This was a mod that beautified some of the female NPCs that follow the player. Now Lydia was that pretty, and she was angry too. John raised his hammer and swung at Lydia, not charmed by her at all. Lydia stood strong and blocked John's strike with her shield. The people cheered as this blow has sent many people flying, yet that strong girl was blocking it with one arm. She countered at John with a stab, yet he guided it away with the hammer's haft, then returned the blow with the hammer's backspike. The backspike went directly into Lydia's safe zone and threatened her. She retreated back, but the backspike sank into the wooden back of her shield. John took over the opportunity and pulled the hammer back, taking away the shield from Lydia. Lydia retreated a few steps away and was now understanding why John was considered the true black horse of this tournament. She held her sword with two hands and struck fast. John blocked with his hammer and counted with the knob of the grip right on Lydia's face. Some of the crowd started booing at John for his brutish behavior, yet who gives a damn? John attacked with a roundhouse kick to push Lydia back more. The crowd was cheering more as it seemed that Battleborn already sent his opponent down and went to help Wolfer. This fight was already in the hands of Team White Wolves. Lydia looked around and saw it's hopeless. Your team is simply too strong, I admit it, she said while throwing the sword away and helmet, but just like the others, I want to try a fist fight. She smiled fearlessly. John was thinking, why are Nords so fond of being beaten up? He didn't realize how much they liked his style. He also put his hammer and helmet down and moved a bit to the side with Lydia. They went into brawling pose and stood still. The crowd cheered as the last girl fell to Wulfer and Battleborn blows. I felt something dirty with that line. Lydia and John moved as if that was the starting signal. Wulfer and Battleborn stood to the side to watch. Lydia punched faster than the normal opponents could as she was much lighter. John dodged backward as he could feel pressure from her punches. He found a chance and sent a fast jab at her nose. Lydia took the hit head-on and was forced backward. She put her hands on her face to check and found blood oozing from her nose. She smiled fiercely and started punching and kicking at John. He used the opportunity and kicked her kick, causing her stance to crumble and fall down. John tried to hold her when she was down, but she kicked while she was down and jumped on him and clashed body to body. Suddenly, John could feel a sense of disaster. Lydia hugged him tightly and refused to let go. Then she used her hips and carried John. She ran carrying him. John kicked her with his knee, but she was so persistent. She refused to let go and still ran. John could feel she was heading out of the arena. She was aiming to throw John out of it and disqualify him. John used his arms to hug into her and tried to twist her body, but she resisted to the best of her ability. As Lydia almost reached the end of the arena, she made a jump. John looked at her and smiled. He thought, so that was it. Lydia was trying to disqualify herself with him, a bit heroic in her Nordic brain. Due to that, John didn't offer more resistance. As she jumped with him, he fell first, and she was on him. That was naughty. She tried to look cool using me. Well, I was the villain most of this match, though. I was lying on my back outside the arena, and she was on top of me. Her head was on my chest. The crowd cheered and she moved. She looked at me with a grin and said, I got you. Well, I was careless, but whatever. My team won anyway. Still, I could also feel like I won. Can we stay like this for a while? I asked. Lydia raised her brows, questioning what I meant. She was sitting on me. It was what we call in the other world, cowgirl position. She noticed how she sat and was shocked. I was really enjoying her expressions. As she got up slowly, she looked away and said, I am sorry, but I couldn't help but giggle. The judge announced my team's win. This was my first time to get disqualified, though. This was the announcement saying that my team will get into the finales. Our fans cheered and some people still booed. I guess I should have gone easy on the girls. Next match was something I had to watch. It was Argir versus Rusning, Golden Swords versus Arcana Wisdom. The winner is our opponent. Chapter 32, Semifinals Part 2. Argir and Rusning were facing each other on the arena. This was 5 versus 5 match. I guess it will be much better than my match. It's after all 5 mages versus 5 warriors. This match will be dangerous. Many healers stood near to the arena. Even Sybil Stentor herself stood next to the arena. I was also invited to sit near to the arena if my help was needed. Few mages and monks from Solitude rounded the arena with Sybil and casted a barrier spell. There were no barriers in the game, but in real life, it's actually a giant ward spell. I can do that too, as the manipulation of ward spells was easy. Yet as the size of the ward grows, the more the harder it gets to defend with it, so more caster were needed. It can also be applied by installing some soul gems with the right amount of power. This technique appeared in-game as traps in various locations in Skyrim. It is a bit complicated, but it's like installing a program. You need to cast a certain rune spell and install a soul gem on it. Wards are anti-magic barrier. They can stop magic perfectly as long as they overpower the magic they are against. All this meant that Team Arcana Wisdom can go all out to there as they wished. I sat and watched closely. Argir and his teammates appeared as if they were knights with their expensive-looking armors and their matching appearance. Rusning's team was mages. They will have a hard time facing the rush of the warriors, or so that appeared. I already could see confidence on their faces. These guys have already cooked something for today. 5 stood facing 5. The mages took their distance and prepared spells. The warriors unsheathed their swords as they all used long swords in this fight. The tension of the crowd was at its max. The judge gave the instructions as usual and ran like a rabbit. I could feel Rusning already using magic. He was charging his spell and already aiming for a big move from the start. The other mages on Rusning's team were also charging spells. Just as the judge shouted, "Fight!" Rusning and Arger shouted, "Summon! Disperse!" 4 Frost Atronax appeared. They were clearly dual-casted as the magicka bounding them felt like that. Not only that, Rusning was not making a summon, he was making 2 adept-level casts of the same spell on each hand. As he unleashed the spells, they were 2 big Ice Storm spells. He must have invested a lot of magicka on these. The warriors ran to every corner as they were afraid from a spell that does an area damage. Smart move, but it was only 2 spells. Now you have to deal with the summons. 4 Frost Atronax are a pain to deal with. Frost Atronax are large, hulking Daedra that deals melee damage. It's not that fast, but it's very solid. One of its arms are pointy and the other is blunt. The 4 started to chase. As for the 5 warriors, the best way to deal with these creatures was to use silver, elven, glass, or enchanted weapons. Sure enough, Golden Sword's team had already their swords enchanted for this kind of situation. They started to fend against the Atronax while trying to stay out of the mage's sight. Yet the mages were already making stone skin spells and moving to the next phase systematically. I was nodding to how they worked. They were very organized. They also sometimes waited for their magicka to regenerate. As there were 4 Atronax and 5 warriors, one was able to break free. A warrior from Arger's team ran with a smile on his face. He was shouting, "Got you," while attacking one of the mages. The mage was the girl named Jolma, or how I rather call her, Machine Gun Jolma. This girl can fire spells like crazy. Once this warrior broke into run, Arger was shouting for him to come back, and as he was reaching Jolma, the girl grinned and pointed her hand at him, and the tragedy began. Ice Spike spells were spammed like crazy. Even I started to be afraid. I can block that amount, but if I was hit by it, my survival will be questionable. This poor boy had his fill of ice spikes. They were not aimed at fatal spots, and his armor has anti-magic enchantment, so he was fine. Probably. He hit the ground and was announced out. Someone sneaked into the arena and dragged him out. Cast Freeze. Don't let the Atronax stray far. Holman, you heal the damaged Atronax. Rusning was giving orders, and his team was moving perfectly under his lead. Arger was depressed after a member of his team fell. He was thinking how to win this tight situation. These things are slow. Draw them back and the mages will lose their cover. Arger started giving orders too. Destroy them one by one. And don't let the mages fire a spell on you when you are in one place. Arger and Rusning made strategies and moved accordingly. The team reached a point where the 2 were on equal terms, even with the warriors being short in number. Ordinary people might think they were on equal terms, but truth is that the warriors were under a lot of stress. The ice element was the bane of warriors. Also, their opponents increased from 5 to 9, and they became 4 and were being pushed back slowly. "Buy me some time," Arger shouted and retreated back. He then ran and went past the siege of Atronax. He ran with nimble steps and readied his sword. He was met with a barrage of spells, but he was Arger of the Golden Swords. He jumped left and right and avoided whatever was thrown at him. He approached one of the boy mages with the speed of a ghost and slashed at him. The stoneskin protection offered a nice layer of armor and could stop the slash, but the enchantment on the sword made some magical damage. Yet mages were used to that. What they were not used for was brutal physical damage, as the mage was carried and thrown down with all Arger's weight on top of him. Arger went up fast and tried to attack another mage, but he didn't notice what he stepped on and was blown away by an ice rune. As that was done, he rolled on the ground with pain expression on his face. He could feel a bad promotion if he stayed on the ground, so he jumped back like a rabbit, enduring the pain and running back behind his team. He panted and looked at the mage he put down. He was being carried away, and one of the Atronax were unsummoned. Now as the pressure lessened down, the warriors tried to take back momentum, but fate was mocking them. One of the warriors was hit by a freeze spell, a spell that can do magic over time and slow down the opponent. He was indeed slowed down and couldn't fend against the Atronax he was fighting and was blown away. Mercy knew no address for him as he was struck again by an ice spike spell and couldn't stand from pain. Another warrior has fallen. The mages started to tighten their defense as they were expecting a similar counterattack. The attack did come, as the warriors could finally destroy an Atronach and made a fast charge against the mages. This was a good charge, yet another warrior fell during the barrage of spells that met them. That now left Argir and another warrior. Argir could finally close once again, and he used many dodging moves to reach this annoying machine gun girl. He hit her with the pommel of his sword on the head, and she went unconscious. Now 2 warriors against 3 mages and 1 Atronach. Argir's teammate used himself as a shield to block the Atronach and let Argir run past it to face 3 mages on his own. His first target was a girl and a boy who stood close. Suddenly they summoned bound weapons and met with him head-on. "Aren't you mages?" Argir was taken aback, but the answer made him smile. The boy and the girl shouted, "We are Nords," as they attacked him. Argir passed from their bound weapon easily as they were not bad at using them, but his level of combat was just too good. As he dodged them, he held his long sword from the blade and used the handle as blunt weapon, hitting both the boy and girl on the head. They fell to his blows, and the last, Frost Atronach, also fell. Yet to his disappointment, his teammate was also lying on the ground. Now he was completely with no backup. He turned to the last enemy and tried to rush at him, but he was met with 2 hands casting 2 cold spells of Frostbite spell. This spell was a stream of coldness. Argir was affected by his fatigue and the ice element that attacked his stamina. He could hardly make any moves now. He only depended on his willpower and tried to move forward. One of the spells was taken back, but another one came after it. It was Spark's spell. Now he was being attacked by 2 spells from ice and lightning elements, and he could barely stand. Yet he persisted and leaned on his sword. Another time, the Spark spell was stopped and switched from lightning to fire, but the Frostbite was reinforced with more magicka. Few seconds it stopped. Argir looked to see what happened, but he could see a big ball of fire coming at him. He reflexively carried his sword with 2 hands and slashed at it. As the swords and spell met each other, the spell exploded. This was a fireball spell. It launched Argir away and threw him to the ground a bit far away. Rusning, on the other hand, looked pale and exhausted. The crowd, who never cheered in this match, even once due to the enthusiasm, still was shocked by the performance that was just too good. My showdown just a while ago was nothing compared to this hype. Rusning couldn't stand anymore and fell on the ground. He was too tired as he already used most of his magicka. I couldn't help myself but to stand up and start clapping. My clapping woke the crowd up, and they also clapped and cheered. Now it's settled. It will be my team against Team Arcana Wisdom. I have to be ready for tomorrow. Team Arcana Wisdom was now in the finals with our Team White Wolves. If you told anyone before this tournament that the teams which will be on the top 2 in the team duels would be a team from the College of Winterhold and another unsponsored team, they would beat you black and blue. The fact that the college is hateful is still true in the eyes of many, but they may have changed their opinions about these 5 Nord young mages. Yet that last match was just too good. The power of the warriors, especially Argir's last maneuver, and the spells that Rusning cast alongside his wise leadership, all that put mages into a new light. Many people were looking at me for God knows what reason. I already made a counterplan to whatever the college brings on stage tomorrow. I wouldn't be as arrogant as saying they have no trump card left after this match. I think they did just like I did. They should left at least something big for tomorrow. I have that thing that I train myself with in secret for few months before I leave Rift Inn. Only Nurina knew of it, and she helped me to train it in secret. This secret is going out tomorrow. As the mages put down the ward barrier, Healer rushed in like crazy. They also carried stamina potions. After a while, Rusning and Argir stood up and greeted each other, then were taken to the VIP seats as the big shots wanted to have a look at them. As they got down from the VIP, I was not far and we could see each other. "Nice fight, you two," I greeted. "Thank you," Argir said politely. "Thank you, but I'm afraid you're going to have more than that tomorrow," Rusning said, making himself look confident. We 3 stood and trash-talked on the side. Viarmo announced the end of today's events and the time of tomorrow's events, as well as the last event the day after tomorrow, which will be held just before the champion's ceremony. He also announced a funeral ceremony will be held tonight for a member of Team Black Snow that met a tragic death 2 days ago. The ceremony will be held in front of the Temple of Gods. We are going, I said. Sure, I'll be there if my sis, him, if they needed anything, Arger said. W. What? You are going? Rusning was nervous. I looked at him, yet he looked at me with disdainful eyes. Come on, attending Sibby's funeral was one of my dreams. Let's just get over with it. Chapter 33, Divine Elegance. The Bounce Chapter. I went back to the inn and looked through my stuff. Seriously, there were nothing elegant in my chest. I had to mix a few stuff together, but that didn't look cool. I looked around my room and smiled. I knew someone who did that before. In my past life, I had a sister, and just like all sisters, they would drag all their stuff on the bed and complain how they have nothing to dress. I wonder who did I catch that habit from? If only I had my armor and clothing mods, I wouldn't be in such distress. This is something that I confirmed, but all the mods that add unrealistic stuff to Skyrim didn't follow me to my next life. And the armor mods are not really there. Maybe if these armors were locked in somewhere in a dungeon, or something I could find them, but I am not expecting much anyway. I had to go out and buy something. This event is so special that I have to attend it with something so cool, sending Sibby Blackbriar to oblivion. So I'll have to ask anyone about a good place. As I went out of my room, I saw just the girl, Sviti, who was playing with her baby fox. I think she named it Grace. Sviti, may I have a minute of your precious time? I said. How polite. You really need something that bad? She made a foo-foo-foo after I said that. You see, there is someone we know being sent to oblivion tonight, and I have no clothes to send him off with. I said with a sad face, do you know a good place? Oh, you're going to the funeral? Well, all I know are girl places. You need to ask Jorna for stuff like that. She knows the city very well. She said. Jorna? Well, she is my cousin, so I think she will help, even though I am not sure if she knows about me being her cousin or not. Well, let's ask her. Filling my purse with gold coins and few change, I locked my chest and rushed outside the inn. Now let's head to Skyfire Pet Shop. I wonder if Skyfire is my clan name? This will be like John Skyfire. Nah, doesn't sound good. While thinking about these meaningless ideas, I reached the shop. It was open and have few customers. I went in and looked around. So many cute animals were there. May I help you with some? Oh, if it is not John, someone said. I turned around, and it was the person I was looking for, Jorna. Hey, I was looking for you. I greeted. Why? She asked. You see, there is someone I know is being sent to oblivion tonight, and I don't have a good thing where. Sviti said you know the good places around? I said. You are sending someone to oblivion, then don't you need an armor? She said. It's just for seeing him off. I said. The funeral, you mean? Fine, I'll ask Ma for a few minutes, and come with you to a place I know. Jorna said and ran inside. A minute later she came and went out with me. I looked at the shop sign and said, So, Skyfire, is that the name of your clan? No, the clan's Firemane clan? She said. Firemane? That was not in the game. But Firemane sounds familiar for some reason. Isn't that a boss in FF? Whatever. Never heard about them. I said. Normally that's the case. Our business name's Skyfire, and that's the only name we use. She said. So where your clan from? I asked. That's a secret. I heard you will be invited next year, but you shouldn't know now. She said. Strange. Why the secrecy? So your clan doesn't live in a city or a town? I asked. Obviously. She said. Well, that's mysterious. I hoped to know the reason, but she didn't tell. As we walked, she was taking me into the inn's direction, and she stopped and said, Here we are. So it is that? I looked in the shop sign that read Radiant Raiment. This is a shop from the game, one that gives a quest, and it was an annoying one. There were 2 high elf sisters, and they are hateful, I tell you. The shop belongs to Terry and Endari. They don't treat people very well, but they are good to me, Jorna said. I know about their nature. Terry is a typical high elf who normally looks down on people, but imagine a high elf who works in fashion business which is already looking down on people. This is just annoying to bear. Worse is her sister Endari. She hates people altogether. Jorna pushed the front door and I followed. We walked into a typical solitude building, yet there were all kinds of clothes that I have never seen before. Hello, Indari, it's Jorna. Jorna called for Indari as if they were familiar to each other. 1 second. A voice sounded, then a minute later a woman came out. An altmare with their usual skin that has a very pale golden hue. I am happy I modded most of the NPC females in Skyrim. This woman in the game is actually scary. I think this is the ordinary women mod. Jorna, you came, Indari said, and she looked quite happy. Jorna gave a smile and said, this is my aunt's disciple. I came here to show him the place. Oh, what delight. Another charming customer, Indari said. I think she always said that in the game too. He is also looking for something suitable to see a friend off to oblivion, Jorna said while giggling. Indari raised her brows and said, I have few of those myself. Then she looked at me, I have something your size. She walked in and Jorna told me to follow. Actually, the stuff is quite nice. Indari brought out a black outfit of a black leather coat and pants with a crimson shirt. It had few leather strips with buckles. It looked fantastic in my opinion, yet it was a bit familiar, and I couldn't help but tilt my head. I think this is from a mod. I feel it's so familiar. This is an outfit that we import from Old Hroldan Town. There is a store that opened there, and they export these good stuff, Indari said. What is the name of that store? I had a hunch, but I needed to confirm it. It goes by Divine Elegance. Quite the cocky name, but they do good stuff. So, buying or leaving? Indari said, but my head was already somewhere else. Old Hroldan was indeed a town in this world, and not just a small inn in the middle of nowhere. Yet the name Divine Elegance is that from a mod that made good clothing. It was one of my favorite clothing mods. This outfit was none other than Detlef outfit from the Witcher game series. It was created by the modders and put into the world of Skyrim. Amazing! I exclaimed. This outfit was a real cosplay for Detlef the vampire. I can't let that thing off. But wait, what else do you have? Indari looked that she wanted to kick me out, but she swallowed the urge and showed me another stuff. I could find many stuff from the mod. I couldn't hold myself back at all. I'll buy all these goodies. What I bought were Detlef outfit, Dandelion outfit, Algierd robes in black, Avalak robes normal one in black, the suits of Nilfgaard and Beauclair, the casual clothes, Silent Mist outfit, Spellmonger robe, Secret Apprentice robe, and Robin outfit. I also bought some gifts for Nurina. The amount of money I spent was enormous, yet it was worth it. When I asked Jorna about what gift should I bring for Hilda, she said, look for the meanest and scariest armor or weapon in the market. This was not helping. Maybe I'll buy her something when I reach Winterhold. Thinking about that, I hired a carrier and paid him to carry my stuff and follow me to the inn. I said farewells and went away. After I reached the inn, another problem occurred. I didn't know which one to wear. No, I have all the clothes I want, and they are just too good. I don't know which one will make my handsome the most. Damn it. Even his funeral, that Sibby is giving me a headache. I'll just wear the Detlef outfit. Damn, I look good. If I have some black round glasses right now, this will end up being epic. I put on the shoes and gloves and did my hair. Now this young man is ready to roll. I told Wolfer and Battleborn not to follow. These guys will give me out and look nervous all the time. As I reached the Temple of the Divines, Rusning was waiting for me and saw my elegance, or not. He came and went in with me, apparently. I was late, but nothing has happened. Yet everyone was here. Those who didn't attend were mostly Big Bad Ulfric, Skald the Grumpy, Faralda who doesn't care, and the ones who had no strong connection. I attended as the captain of the team who was making it for the finals as a fellow participant from Rift Inn. The Temple of the Divines was in the castle and its high priest was Rorland, a man who was mostly drunk. At the deepest part of the temple lied the 8 shrines of the Divines, as the shrine of Talos was removed due to the white gold concordat. High priest Rorland started a speech probably written by Maven and praised the bravery of Sibby, and he fought his attackers as one of them was killed by him. Yet he was attacked from the behind by a cowardly arrow. I actually the one who made it look like that. Later I heard that the guards cleared the slums and took out many ruffians and threw them to prison. All for the good of the city, though. I could notice Maven and her family wearing black. They didn't look sad at all. I bet that Hemming was happy he became the only male heir to his mother's empire now. Maven was making her usual by **H face. and her daughter Ingen was playing with something in her hands, and let me tell you, if Ingen Blackbriar played with anything, then it probably is involved with the word death. Well, she didn't look sad to me either. I should just avoid any Blackbriar after that. As the sermon ended, I excused myself and walked with Rusning. On the way out, I saw Idgrod Ravencrone and her daughter Idgrod the Younger walking out. Walk, my girl. These are dark times. People kill people and go attend their funerals. I could hear Idgrod telling that to her daughter. I froze, Rusning froze, the air around us froze. We looked at each other and couldn't help but run out of the temple's yard. I told you this is a bad idea, Rusning said. It's not my fault. This Jarl is weird. She can tell future and see all kinds of weird stuff. I told him. What will happen if she told the Blackbriars? Rusning said. I don't think she will, but let's leave the city right after the tourney, I said. Chapter 34, Finals, Part 1. A day passed after the captains of the two teams went each to his way. Now they were standing facing each other again in the arena, glaring and sneering. That's all these two exchanged. One of them was at the head of the other, reading each other's thoughts and playing who acts first loses. The lineup was John, who stood in the middle holding no weapon and wearing a scaled cuirass on a mage robe. Wulfr was wearing his full armor for the first time on the arena, a heavy steel armor with his high dam shield. In his hand was not the flail but John's hammer, Ugniare. Battleborn was wearing the same scaled cuirass as John's. It has a good resistance to magic, so it will be of use this match. He surprisingly was holding a bow, and his sword was sheathed. On the other side, Rusning and his team were on their top readiness. They didn't just wear robes, they also brought staves. They wanted to go all out and crush the hurdle known as White Wolves. As most of the White Wolves were warriors, John could guess that these staves were ice-spick staves. He was really not worried. He has already enchanted Wulfr's shield with resist magic enchantment and gave Wulfr and Battleborn capes of frost resistance. He already foresaw every move the opponent will do, and also was hoping that they will surprise him. As the mages of around the arena made their barrier, and the judge set instructions, White Wolves and Arcana Wisdom stood on the arena 3-3. Team White Wolves, as usual, had the two Jaunts and Wulfr. Team Arcana Wisdom had Rusning as the leader and the one who could use adept-level destruction magic, Svefna the girl who can charge spells for long times, Svedal the boy who can aim magic to two different directions with his two hands without missing the two targets. Outside the arena was Jolma the machine gun and Holman the healer and the ward master. After one falls, Holman will come in to equalize, then Jolma to put pressure on the White Wolves. That was the strategy, and John saw through it. As the judge gave the signal, Team Arcana Wisdom took their formation and aimed their staves. It was a normal formation. Team White Wolves were John at the front, casting his ward with his left while Battleborn stood on his back and looked cool. As the judge said, "Fight," and jumped away, Rusning shouted, "Fire," and the team fired, ice spikes from their staves, just as John predicted. John was just standing and casting his quadrant ward with his left hand, and his right hand was behind his back with a lightning spell being charged on it. A barrage of ice spikes fell on the ward, and as the frost element was being dispersed by the ward, mist was forming from the way it was being blocked with. Few seconds of firing ice spikes should be enough to put pressure on John, but the only mist was forming more and more. As mist blocked the view, Rusning signaled for his team to stop the casting. They kept looking at the mist as it was depressing, waiting to see how their surprise attack would work on Team White Wolves. But what they saw made their jaws drop. John was standing the same as he was, and his team was still the same. No one even moved once. Sybil Stentor and Faralda opened their eyes wide. Jarl Idgrod laughed softly. These three were the most well-versed three in magic between the spectators. One must know that to block a spell with a ward, one needs to overpower this spell with his own magicka, and John did overpower 3 staves with his magicka alone. This was hard to be puffed by an artifact as it was connected to the nature of magicka itself, and John was a Nord and a human. However, his magicka nature appeared to be on the level of elves. Only these three could comprehend that. Rusning knew that John's magicka wasn't something he can go alone against yet, not this scary point. He devised the first move especially to put pressure on John. John smiled and moved his right hand to his side and pushed it forward in a casting pose. Fierce lightning broke out and headed towards the opponents. The spell struck Svidal, but it was too much for him, and he shouted from pain. The spell didn't just do that. It bounced from him to Rusning and struck him hard. Then it bounced at Svefna, who screamed from the shock. This was no lightning bolt spell. This was chain lightning spell. Unlike the game where it only bounces on one target, in real life, it can bounce for any number as long as it was charged with enough magicka, and John just mastered it 2 days ago. Damn, that guy is a monster, Svefna said. She could speak as she took the least damage from the spell. Svidal, on the other hand, was already on one knee. No time to chat. Next phase quickly. Rusning gave orders and made the next spell. They took distance from each other and started with next spell, which was already being cast. Every one of them has summoned a Frost Atronak. Let's move, John called to the heavily armored Wulfur and the light-armored Battleborn. Wulfur nodded and walked to the Atronak on the left. Battleborn started running to the side. Battleborn started harassing the other team with arrows, and Wulfur clashed head-on with a Frost Atronak. John made 2 spells and summoned 2 Fire Atronaks. The people were cheering for the show. The amount of magic they saw during the last few days made them able to identify the magic on their own. Now, there were 11 figures on the arena clashing and shooting spells at each other. Wulfur was standing his ground against a Frost Atronak alone and hitting it with a fire-enchanted weapon. He was doing good on his own. Battleborn shot arrows and pushed the mages from their ground. John started using lightning bolts and fought with 3 mages on his own. They started changing the element against him from ice to fire as it would do more damage. John dodged and shot lightning again and again. Rusning started targeting Wulfur and Battleborn on his own. He wanted to eliminate someone, then focus his team's power on John. As Battleborn ran out of arrows, he switched to sword and ran to John and hid behind him. Team Arcana Wisdom could finally take a little breath. John's Fire Atronaks were focused on the other Frost Atronaks. John could find a clear way to run forward with Battleborn behind him. Then he cleared the way for Battleborn. Battleborn ran and dodged nimbly. He was fast. So fast that people started to wonder. He could jump and do moves like John too. Actually, John started teaching Battleborn some moves to dodge while rushing forward to avoid arrows and spells. Battleborn could make his way through spells under John's cover fire. He reached Svidal and attacked him with a body clash. Svidal was carried by Battleborn's push and was sent to the air. There was no mercy, as it seemed that John taught him how to strike the head with a knee. Svidal fell unconscious to the attack and Battleborn escaped back. Wulfur has finished a Frost Atronak on his own and was moving to the next to find it crumbling and being unsummoned. He just ran to the next one. The pressure on Arcana Wisdom increased and Rusning called for Holman. As Svidal was being carried back, Holman ran in and conjured a Frost Atronak to lessen the pressure. Holman healed Svefna and Rusning, who were firing spells at John. John hid behind the barrier and retreated slowly. We are being pushed. Rusning was annoyed by the situation. Give me time, Svefna said and returned behind. Holman took her place and started spamming spells. Rusning looked at her and saw what she was doing. He knew her specialty and didn't talk. He can't dishonor the determination of his teammate. Svefna charged an Ice Storm spell and dual-casted it on both hands. She then started to overcharge it. Overcharging was a technique used when a mage starts to put more magicka than usual in a spell. In a destruction spell that was dangerous, as one could lose control and the spell would explode, yet that was Svefna's specialty. Now cover me, she said and started running to the side. Rusning and Holman could already see what she was thinking and ignored protecting themselves to provide more cover. John could see the change in phase and notice Svefna's moves. She lined herself to face the 3 opponents of White Wolves at once. Then she let go of her spell. John opened his eyes wide from the size of the spell. He was busy blocking Rusning and Holman, who started casting magic like madmen, and now a spell that size was heading for him. It was too late to manipulate the ward to block it. The best way was to avoid it. Incoming. Avoid. John warned Battleborn, who was behind him, and Wulfur, who was busy with a Frost Atronak. Svefna saw the situation and smiled. You think I'll let you have your way? she shouted. It appeared that the frost Atronach Wulfur was fighting was hers. She controlled it and made it throw its all way on Wulfur to pin him down. Wulfur, avoid! Battleborn shouted at Wulfur, but it was too late. Jon and Battleborn could already avoid the ice storm, yet Wulfur, who was pinned down, took the full force of it. Jon knew that Wulfur's shield and cape should save him in this kind of situation, but to see his best friend take a spell like that made blood rush to his brain, and he called a lightning bolt spell and fired it on Svefna. Svefna's last attack was a suicidal one to damage Team White Wolves and let Jolma in. Sure enough, she was ready to be attacked. Jon's lightning bolt struck her body and sent her to the ground, yet she was still controlling the frost Atronach to not let it off Wulfur. A breath later, the frost Atronach on Wulfur exploded and a hammer could be seen coming from it. This was Agniar at the hands of Wulfur dealing the last blow to the frost Atronach. Svefna saw that and said, "Damn it," then lost her consciousness as her magicka ran out and she was beaten up badly. The judge made a fast announcement and signaled for healers to get her out. Also, Jolma was running in. Wulfur was panting from exhaustion and was standing on one knee leaning at the hammer. There were no Atronachs left, so Jon said, "Rest now." As Jolma reached her teammates, they tightened their defense and made preparations to make an attack on their opponents with Jolma's speed casting and Rusning's powerful spells. Jolma cast a spell and another Atronach appeared. Luckily, her team was short on magicka, and they can't afford to conjure more. Jon now had Battleborn and 2 flame Atronachs, and Wulfur was resting. "We need to surround them. An Atronach will follow you and fire at them. Another will face the new Atronach and draw it away. I will take a side. You go right, I go left." Jon made a plan and said, "Once you take their attention, move out of the way. I'll do a big one." "Good luck," Battleborn said and moved. The people cheered from the strong exchange between the teams. This time Team White Wolves was facing a strong opponent and made their best moves. Even if that was a mage's match, it was an excellent match. No one could move their eyes away, even the Jarls of Windhelm, Winterhold, and Dawnstar, who hated magic. Team Arcana Wisdom had Holman as the ward caster in the front to protect them from Jon's spells. Rusning was on the right of Holman and Jolma was on his left. Jon ran to the left at Rusning's side. Battleborn ran to the other side and started dodging and jumping with nimble acrobatics. Jolma was spamming spells at him, and he would throw stones at her if he could while trying to get close. Jon, on the other hand, was controlling 2 Atronachs, holding Holman in place with one, drawing away the new Atronach with another, and he was exchanging spells with Rusning and pressing him bad. Faralda, Sybil Stentor, and Jarl Idgrod were admiring what they were seeing. The level of control was hardly achieved by anyone in that age. He was managing all his team and summons while attacking. If Jon heard them talking about that, he would say playing FIFA was harder. Rusning and his team looked like some heroes from a certain movie who were defending each other's backs while taking attacks from all sides. Avengers, Age of Ultron, the last fight scene around the device thing. "Holman, I am running out of magicka. A hand here," Rusning shouted. "That fire Atronach is so annoying I can't face it with a hand," Holman complained. "Jolma?" Rusning asked. "This guy is too slippery. I can't hold him or leave him be." Jolma, who reached a deadlock with Battleborn, shouted. Rusning thought and made a decision. He said move, as he backed away from his confrontation with Jon and aimed at Battleborn. Then he cast a big fire magic, squeezing the last of his juice with it. A fireball flew at Battleborn, who was not making a good footing, and exploded right next to him. His defense was not up, and Jolma could damage him a few times from their last exchange. He could see the fire turning from a spell to explosion. He barely looked at the guy who carried the same name as him and shouted, "You turn," while getting blown away and falling unconscious. Jon saw that and hardened his resolve. He had to make a move now. He moved like a ghost nearer and nearer to the 3 opponents. Jolma was focusing her attention on him and was readying a spell. Jon, who has rolled and reached a far location, was standing 3 meters away from Team Arcana Wisdom. Too close, too daring. Mages like Jolma can be dangerous at that range, as their accuracy will be better. Some started shaking their heads from the bad decision. Some started thinking about how Jon's mistake costed his team its first loss. Some were happy or sad for their bets that was confirmed right in front of their eyes. Some were really worried at John. Yet what John did was speaking 2 words. 2 words made the time stop. 2 words made everyone lose their senses. Made everyone wish to question their own sanity, yet they didn't have the chance as the words they heard were loud and clear. Elisif hugged Torrig from the shock. Idgrod jumped back from the scare her gifts couldn't foresee. Ulfric couldn't hold his goblet, and it fell from his hands. Balgruuf opened his mouth, and an egg could pass through it. Even the cool-headed Scotty was struck dumb and couldn't believe what she saw or heard. None of these reactions were overreacted. They all were on spot. The 2 words said by John just were too scary that everyone was struck with fear of what they saw after them. John spoke, and the world obeyed. Space was moved and power was unleashed. Half of Solitude heard those 2 words. They were FUSRO. Star. A bounce chapter is ready, edited and all. Give up all your stones on the way out if you want to see it today. Once we break into the top 20 again, I'll post it along with another few announcements. Chapter 35, Finals, Part 2. This is the second chapter that comes to you by the good graces of Alex Martzon at Drthrotlage on Discord. There are a bunch of important notes at the end of the chapter. Fusaro. These words that turn the voice into raw power, pushing aside anything or anyone who stands in its path. They were not the complete shout. They missed the last word, da, which meant push. Fuss means force, ro means balance. The 3 words altogether would unleash a mighty force that would push away anything and anyone like a blast. Yet, John only used the first 2 words for 2 reasons. The first reason is, the first 2 words are enough. The might of the 3 words together in real life is too much different than what was in the game. The first word can push an adult man across a room, the second will send him flying for a short distance, yet the third word may actually kill a man. The third word itself carried much more power than all the other 2 words that it would send a man flying like a ragdoll and might break his body or cause him to hit something really hard. It shouldn't really kill a man if only he was lucky enough or strong enough. The second reason was that John couldn't master the third word yet. He could comprehend the words of power because he saw them and he could understand their meaning due to the experience of playing the game. He knew all the shouts from the game, yet mastering only 2 words in 1 year was his limit. Even the hero of the game could master only 1 word per fulfilling a certain condition. These were his reasons for not using Da. He couldn't, and if he could he may have killed these opponents. The power was unleashed from John, who was only 3 meters away from his opponents. This distance was enough for him to devastate them from this distance. Jolma was the closest to the shout, and she was being pushed away with its power. Holman was just beside her fending against John's fire Atronak. He was completely exposed from his side and was caught off guard too. Rusning, who just blasted Battleborn away, could see what was happening, yet he couldn't go anywhere. His power was depleted and was staggering even before the shout could reach him. On the spectator's side, Scotty, Bjorna, and Sviti were screaming alongside the other spectators. Around the arena, the mages who were maintaining the ward barrier couldn't just leave the barrier and run. All they could do was to close their eyes and crawl ready for impact. The participants' seats were no better. John was facing them, so they felt like the shout was actually heading for them and starting jumping away. The VIP area, as usual, suffered the most. Elisif was completely on Torig's lap. Idgrod, for the first time around people, looked surprised. Ulfric rushed and stood at the rail ahead of the VIP area, holding onto it. The other Jarls suffered again from the same damn youth, who always made their hearts jump, yet this time was the hardest surprise. This was just too absurd. Most of the people heard the legends about the words of power, the voice, the Thursdayum, the ancient language of the dragons. Few people understand that power, fewer witnessed it. It was noted that last time the Thursdayum was used in battle was at 4 times 10 to the power of -176 at the Forsworn Rebellion, when the city of Markarth fell to the natives of the Reach. At that time, Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak led a band of Nord warriors and retook the city from the natives. This happened during the Great War. The man himself was present and witnessed the shout of John being performed in front of him. He was the only voice master known under High Hrothgar. but now there are two. The time that stopped in the minds of many people started to flow again, and the results of the shout were vividly seen. Jolma and Holman were flying back. Rusning was a bit away from the center of the force unleashed, so he only fell hard on the ground and rolled back. As Jolma and Holman fell down, the force wave continued to advance and hit the barrier, dispelling a part of it and sending the mages to their knees. Then the wave was depressed after its power was depleted. Team Aracana Wisdom, which was finally starting to take advantage in battle with the heavy price of 2 of its members, was devastated beyond recovering. Jolma and Holman were on the ground unconscious. Rusning, whose power was depleted due to physical and magical exhaustion, was still conscious, but was panting for breath. On the other side, Battleborn was eliminated. Wolfer was not able to move due to strong frost damage, and John was sitting on the ground while panting from exhaustion. All the Atranacs were dispelled. The judge was not planning to enter anytime soon, but few brave healers ran in to check on the unconscious and ran out carrying them. That was crazy. Rusning said was panting and moving his body. He could stand in a staggering pose. This was really good, he said. He took a deep breath and looked at John. I am not done yet. A mage is always prepared. As he finished saying that, he took out few papers from his robe. John's eyes shrunk. These were scrolls, and he could barely stand up now. Scrolls are magical documents that can be used to cast spells. Anyone can use a scroll, regardless of magic skill, and casting a scroll does not use any magicka. However, each scroll can only be used once. Now, Rusning was having 4 scrolls in his hands. He took one and opened it with hand speed and skill, then fire could be seen on his hand. He did that, then cast the spell all in 1 second. A ball of fire flew toward John, which appeared to be a fireball spell. It flew with speed at John, who was defenseless at this moment. He tried to call his quadrant ward, yet it takes time to switch between spells. John's eyes were on the fast spell that was about to hit him the next second. Suddenly a shadow covered him. A shadow so big that it covered all the light of day that fell on him. This was John's #1 partner in crime and his right-hand man, Wolfer, making his coolest entrance ever. He stood in front of John, then positioned his large shield, the high dam, and with it, he took the spell head-on. The explosion could be heard, and Wolfer shouted from the power carried by it. He looked at John and shouted, I can take this beat ******* RD for a couple more times. Hurry up and finish him. John was in a daze from what he saw, yet he got himself together and cast a spell he could cast in his state towards the sky. A specter bird flew from it as the second impact arrived. Wolfer shouted from the pain again. Rusning was no polite to the friends of yesterday at all. He could see John running out from the cover of the shield and aimed the 3rd fireball at him. A large blast occurred as it seemed that Rusning added some of his last magicka to empower the spell. He was waiting to see the result. Wolfer was blasted away by the spell and fell unconscious to the side. Through the fire of the explosion, a figure jumped, making his arm into X shape to protect his face. His eyes were as that of a wild beast that was unleashed at a prey, and his smile was wide and full of madness. Now the confrontation was only between John and Rusning. John started running right in a straight line towards Rusning, not thinking of dodging anything. Rusning was readying himself to fire the last scroll right at the madly advancing John. It was the last hit of the match. John was using his body as the last resort he can use right now. The after effect of using the Thursdayum was making it hard for his mind to control his magicka or make another spell. On the other hand, Rusning was firing his last bullet at the opponent who was advancing. Rusning and John were smiling from the thrill. Rusning shouted, "Ha ha! Come at me!" He was about to fire his spell directly at John. John was not showing any sign of defending, as if he would run through it. The spell was just about to leave from Rusning's hand at the closest distance he can afford to not harm himself. Yet something happened. A bird. No, a spectral falcon appeared from the side of Rusning and caught his stretched hand that was about to shoot the spell and pulled it away. The spell was fired, yet to complete a different direction from where it should be aimed at. Hitting the spectral falcon with his other hand, Rusning saw something not too good for him. John was already 2 meters ahead of him and was flying. John a few seconds ago controlled the familiar her conjured behind Wulfur while charging at Rusning and disturbed the scroll he was about to cast. John reached a good point, jumped with 2 legs, and rotated himself midair. His legs were facing Rusning and were ready to kick. He let himself get closer and kicked with all his might at Rusning. Even though Rusning was a Nord and had a strong body, he was a mage who didn't train physically that much. As he received the kick, he was launched away by it. Both boys fell with no strength after the last exchange. They officially arrived at their limit. Star. The people were standing on. The VIPs were standing. The judge didn't really want to go in the arena, but he was glared at by everyone. The 3 boys on the arena were lying down and not moving. The judge ran in with healers behind him. The nearest one was Wulfur. The judge checked on him and signaled that he was unconscious. Next was Rusning, who was lying on his front, and John, who was lying on his back. The judge reached Rusning and signaled he was unconscious. Team White Wolves fans cheered, yet the team was not out of the woods yet. The judge headed to John. If John was unconscious, then this match may end as a draw. This will break the hearts of many fans. The judge reached John and was about to check on him. Suddenly, John, who was lying on his back, raised his upper half in a sat while looking around. The judge was frightened and screamed in an embarrassing voice. John and the healers looked at the man with strange eyes. The judge made an ahem and looked at Viarmo and signaled. Viarmo cleared his throat and said, "I hereby declare Team White Wolves the victors of this match. First thing, thank you guys for the amazing support you have shown. Second, it's about the name of the novel. I feel that it's not attraction people or the competition started becoming much more heated with the other novels. Last week we were on the top 20, now we are not. It really is important for me and I want more people to get attracted to it. I know my naming skill is horrible. I am an author who uses name generator after all. So, I was thinking of renaming the novel, something that can make people more attracted to it, not just as a fanfiction they mostly are not familiar with, but as something that make their eyes shine once they see it. Something with the word Dragonborn would be good, so I'll ask both suggestions here and on Discord. Last thing, it is about a suggestion I received on Discord. We have an image section that we post imaginary stuff about the novel, such as how the character look like and that. Now I think if any of the readers has any good drawing skill, they can draw us something like the legendary axe that John sketched at chapter 13. We want to start with that. It will make the novel much more fun and will give the people inspiration about how active and friendly we are on this novel. Thank you, remain supportive, and hail Lord Dragonborn. Chapter 36. Making Preparations. It was loud how people cheered after that match. Both teams showed the spirit and mindset of true warriors. With seedlings like these, Skyrim will have a glorious era of warriors. Every year the competition of the King's Tournament would bring out the best of the best in Skyrim, but this year didn't just bring out just that. This year each force was going all out with its seedlings, and they were all very talented and unique fighters with various skills and charismatic auras. They possessed the features of the leaders as they showed valor, honor, compassion, generosity, and wisdom in every showdown they performed in. Standing on the top of the future generation, a boy whose talent was just too shaking, he was the best performance and many people argued about his talent. Some people even wanted to push him out of the tournament, yet it was not possible. His background was scarier than ever. An arch-wizard was his adoptive mother and many people supported him too. Clan Battleborn threatened the whole big shots of the tournaments that they will react if their son John Battleborn or any of his teammate were so much touched with harm outside the arena. And finally, the most mysterious, Clan Firemane announced their sponsorship for the team. All these reports were revised again on the hearing of the High King and the 8 Jarls. This was the Blue Palace, and specifically, in the throne room, High King Torrig sat hearing from his steward Falk Firebeard, who was reading a report loudly in the presence of all Jarls to hear. So the Firemanes broke the long silence. They took their time. A womanly voice sounded in the room. It was Jarl Layla Lawgiver commenting. This clan just doesn't like to get involved with power and politics. If that was the case, Winterhold would have been rebuilt long time ago. Jarl Career of Winterhold spoke. You damn fool. Winterhold once was a major city in Skyrim. A major city. I tell you. Yet with all the power you can muster, you just sit your sorry *s in your longhouse crying about the past, rebuilding nothing, and leave us to worry about people escaping from your hold. Scald the Elder replied to Career. And all he does every meeting is to complain about how the mages caused the downfall of his city. Also, what can this Firemane clan do? Jarl Igmund of Markarth said. The damn mages were the cause, and history will prove it. Jarl Career couldn't take it and stood. Also, Clan Firemane was no ordinary clan. They survived the Great Collapse and thrived away from Winterhold afterwards. All we know about them is little, yet they never were people of many words. They are true Nords who hold to the old traditions very deeply, and they never forsook the worship of Talos, which meant they have a deep animosity with the Thalmor. Jarl Balgruuf said, I had few dealings with them myself, and they are the most honest mount traders in Skyrim, as everyone know. Their trade is taming. I heard they can communicate with beasts like the old Atmarans, all that make little care to us anyway. All we know, they are rich and powerful. Jarl Dingir of Stun, Jarl of Falkreath said. He was the Jarl of Falkreath before Jarl Sigir. In a previous chapter, one wrote that Sigir was the Jarl, but I was wrong and edited it. Sigir only became a Jarl just before the Civil War. Their name held meaning for a long time, we know of that. Torrig finally spoke. All we are concerned about is how not to get ourselves in trouble with them, and with that headache going on. But the people I want to hear their opinion the most are Jarl Ulfric and Jarl Idgrod. As Torrig said that, Ulfric, who was thinking, looked at the other Jarls, then sighed out. He was a middle-aged man with brown long hair and circlebeard. He was the current living hero of Skyrim and one of the most distinguished figures that younger generations looked up to. He spoke with his strong voice. About the background of the boy is nothing I care about. That clan that sponsors him surely is strong, and their words can affect many Jarls. He said, what I am concerned about what this boy is capable of. His talents are by now the most shocking among all his peers. His magic, even to the eyes that can't understand magic, it looked grand and deep. His martial arts are of a level beyond what we know of. They are very showy, yet I wouldn't want to go against them on equal terms. But all that matters less when we talk about his voice. All the Jarls nodded to what Ulfric said. I wanted to fight you guys out over this guy to take him under my wing, but I am rethinking it now. The Thursdaeum is no ordinary power. It's a power that goes beyond magic itself. For a youngster to learn it in that young age, it would make the Greybeards themselves surprised. My only guess was that this arch-wizard had some secret knowledge that she passed to him and made him grow into such a fine talent. The Jarls were dejected from the grand opportunity they had to miss just because they have no power to hold on to it. Jarl Idgrod. High King Torrig called for the last Jarl who didn't speak. I can't wait him. She just said that. All the Jarls were taken aback. This woman would always say her opinion in anything she knew about or not, yet she refused to speak. Most Jarls wouldn't take her words seriously, but Torrig, Ulfric, and Balgruuf knew what this woman was capable of. Her divinations were scary accurate. Her talent in magic was that of a mystic. She had the weirdest talent among most mages. What I saw in him was a reckless boy who was never afraid to get his hands dirty. He walked the twisted path many times, yet he was never stained by it. She said, I don't think his fate will be easy. Either if you want to associate with him or not, that's your choice. But supporting him may come with a heavy price or an enemy you can't stand against. It's all not clear, but that's the best I can do. She took a deep breath and said, my advice is, don't hinder his path, treat him normally and life will go on just right. She was saying that while looking to Ulfric in the eye. Few could do that. The atmosphere stiffened for a while, but the Torrig decided to break the ice. He is by all means the victor of this tournament, as long as he participates in the last competition, he said and smiled. We will sink him in glory and send him on his way. Still, I am looking forward for tomorrow. As Torrig said that, all Jarls started to giggle inwardly. The last competition is madness in the eyes of many. Safety was guaranteed in the most of the tournament except in this one. People actually died in this one before. First-person POV. That fight was really something. I seriously enjoyed it to the last moment. I really didn't want to use the Thursdaeum in public, especially when Ulfric Stormcloak is around, but it came for the best. I learned the Thursdaeum a year ago. I knew all the words from the game and I could remember everything about them. I even wrote a section about them in my magic note. While trying to learn them, Nurina would take me to her room where she would cast a muffle spell around all the room so no one can hear anything. She took interest in the words of dragons herself, but she couldn't master any of them. That made her really depressed. After few weeks of training, could master the first word fuss. I think the hero of the game could master these words much faster than me due to him absorbing dragon souls. I have no dragon souls and I don't think they have any in the market. I had to take the hard way to learn it, the same way that the normal voice masters could learn the voice. Yet I was talented according to Nurina. She was a genius in magic and she couldn't master a single word. I think me playing the game and using the fuss roda on Lydia for Thout Hands of Time was really giving some results. I wanted to learn other words of power, but for some reason, comprehending them was a pain. I really wanted to learn the disarm, shout, or whirlwind sprint, but they were simply too hard. I guess the reason was due to the shout from the game has much different effect or feeling that I can't apply with imagination or memory. I guess I'll have to try harder. After the fight, I was so beaten up that I went directly to the inn and closed my room. I slept like Horker. After I woke up, I found Scotty, Bjorna, and Battleborn were surrounding me asking me about the Thursday. I thought Battleborn would feel betrayed that I kept that from him, but he was very happy. He said he could see it before he lose consciousness, and it looked grand from his point of view. Scotty was so hyped and was shaking me full force. My bones were going to crack from that woman's grabbing power. Wolfer and Sviti as well as Akira and Isolde knew about that secret, so I was safe from that side. Bjorna came later and started to tell us about the rumors going on in the inn. Some are saying that I am some sort of hero and others were saying I was brought up by Ulfric Stormcloak. So many rumors started to fly around me. There were so many congratulation gifts from some influential people. We even received a dinner invitation by Thane Bryling, but Scotty canceled it off. I would have accepted though. Clan Battleborn sent a huge sum of money to John Battleborn. They said that he made them proud and sent me few gifts too. I had to rent another room to store all these stuff away. Luckily, a servant from the College of Winterhold came and asked me to register the luggage I will take with me on their ship. I showed him the stuff and he was about to cry. I really wanted to sneak around and go to the bathhouse, but a party was thrown in the inn for the honor of Team White Wolves. Teams that also lived in the inn with us joined and drinks were everywhere. Sviti and Battleborn sang many songs I wrote. They were some songs from my past life that I had to edit to fit this world some time ago. I was smiling while drinking with Wolfer. For some reason I had to make him drunk before he can talk normally to Bjorna. This was fun. I didn't drink that much, but I made sure that everyone drink till they fall down. That was part of the plan going on. Seriously, I was starting to feel bad for myself. I'm always shaking people with a hand while holding a dagger behind my back. I guess my cheerful self from my past life has become some sort of distant memory now. As everyone was passed down on the tables and the floor, this was the perfect time to act. I went to a girl called Lizette. She is a beautiful Breton girl who works as a bard in the inn. I gave her few coins and asked her to keep these people sleeping for a while as I wanted to sneak out somewhere. Lizette was a big fangirl to my team and one of Sviti's friends. If I stayed in this city for a while longer, I think I would date her. As I made my way to my room, I opened my personal chest, and there I took out a strongbox carefully. As I put it on the side with utmost care, I opened it and I could see some small flasks in it. These little babies were my pride and joy. These were no poisons or potions, these were bombs. Yes, sir, these are explosives. The mod Complete Alchemy and Cooking Overhaul added these babies to this world. These babies can go *kaboom. When they feel heat or get broken. These babies are too sensitive, you see. I take out a belt with many pockets. These mini pockets fit perfectly with the flasks. They were designed and enchanted to keep them in safe condition during operations. Thieves' Guild gear, as you see. A gift from Uncle Delvin. I put the belt on and took some flasks and equipped them in it. This looked cool, but I had to hide how cool it looked with my shirt. Putting on my sneaking gear and a large black cloak, I was ready to roll. Going downstairs, I could see Lizette doing a good job singing her lullaby. Good girl, keep them sleeping. I went to the side and found someone who was drinking alone in the side. I sat in front of him and didn't say anything. Tonight? Gulamii the Argonian thief, Fince asked me. Tomorrow night, I replied. What will you do? He asked. The girl will die. I am afraid this may go a bit ugly and a little inexperienced. I never took a soul before, I said. He drank from his tankard and looked at me again. So what happened to poor Sibby was not your doing? I looked at him and smiled, then shook my head. Well, you were in the whole day drinking as it seemed. Maven wanted us to investigate you, but we told her you are one of us and we treat our best clients with utmost care, he said. I am glad I was right. So Maven did suspect me after all. Glad I played my part well. I will make a last tour tonight. As long as everything is smooth, nothing will go south on my side, I said. Make sure to stay clear of my way, lizard. I made a dissatisfied face. Can't afford to break my act now. As I said that, I took my leave and left the inn through the back door. Now, to Castle Dower. Dearest readers, there are 3 votes going on in the Discord group. Try them out. Chapter 37. Like the life of a secret agent. I walked in the narrow market street of Solitude, heading to the tallest building in the city, Castle Dower. It wasn't midnight yet, and I could see many people coming and going in the shops that looked like the bazaars. Even though these areas were poor and the streets were narrow, they had no unhealthy establishments like Rift Inn. It has somewhat reminded me with Cairo's Con El Khalili **. I used to love that place. **, a historical market in Egypt. A pic on Discord. My appearance in the cloak and hood was not really out of the place. Some people would walk like that to do private business with ease. So I usually come here to buy soul gems and other stuff too. I took this way to reach the castle because I can lose any pursuer if I felt any, as I don't want the thieves or the assassins to know about my plans. As I reached the castle from the back market, I climbed the road up to the castle's side gate. There are a Fletcher's and a blacksmith shops in this area. A guard stopped me at the gate, so I showed him my tournament token and my face. I told him I was here to meet with Captain Aldous. The guard recognized me and let me pass. Another one led me to Aldous in the training yard. Oh, if it's not our young champion. Captain Aldous seemed to be in a good mood. W.O. met Captain. I greeted him and started a long conversation about the tourney. I want to talk more about this and that, but I came here for a specific reason, I said. Ah, he exclaimed. You are still after answers. I thought you might think they would be those big gamblers who hired assassins. I investigated for a while, but I need to see that girl for one last time. I said, if assassins were hired again, I need to be extra careful. If I got an extra bit of information, then I'll be at ease. It's okay. Follow me. Captain Aldous was a very understanding man. Star. I followed him as he told. This is the only chance to do this part of the plan, and I have to do it perfectly. I have to plant all these explosive flasks inside the jail. The time is tight, and I must do it right. I surveyed the place many times, and I found that there are some places with windows. I tried to make a rough understanding of the building. This was not as hard as anyone would think. Buildings here are not that complicated. The bomb flask size is that of an adult's finger, easy to hide, and with the damp and dark nature of the prison, storing them here is a very safe job. The most important part was how to avoid Captain Aldous's sight and plant them as I follow him. We reached the gate that leads to the prison. Passing it, my eyes started scanning every nook and cranny in the corridors we walked into. As I saw the first window that views the street, I planted a flask around it. From that point, the distance between every flask must be between 5 to 7 meters. Captain Aldous was walking ahead of me, and I was planting flasks on every shelf, clutter, and every dusty and dark place. There is no use in cleaning it. I kept the conversation with Captain Aldous going as to not raise any suspicions. As we reached the cell, I had already planted more than 20 flasks. This was a good result, even if I say so myself. I looked at the girl who feigned madness and kept asking her questions, yet she acted her part well. No matter what, Captain Aldous didn't suspect me. These are the perk of being the young Nord hero in their eyes. Too bad I cheated them. Acting as I got no result, I left the girl and walked out with Captain Aldous. He kept talking about tomorrow's events and how much he was looking for it. Tomorrow was the last round, the Battle Royale. It is a match between the 32 participants only, with no helpers whatsoever. It was a lethal match that sometimes people die in it. Anyone can forfeit from this round, but they won't be acknowledged even if they won every competition before. As for me, who can be called the first team in the winning rate and the scoring rate, I need to make it through tomorrow's match anyway. Even if was defeated, my position in the lead is solid and no one can put me down now. After the match, the rewards will be given by the king, the Skyforge weapons, as well as the monetary reward and the champion's share of the gamblings. I am going to be filthy rich starting from tomorrow. Problem is, this money will be spent too fast if I think about it. I don't feel bad about money actually. The problem for mages are resources, and money can solve that. And the next problem will face me is going to be the price of learning in the College of Winterhold. This is no game, as I said. This is real life. The college charges money for every word one learns. The spells of the expert level, unlike the game, are actually priceless, let alone the master level spells that are considered secrets of the craft, with the forbidden spells and the original spells that mages created. All these problems need a lot of money. Narina is rich and all, but I can't ask more from her. I am a grown person who needs to survive on his own, so the earnings from the tournament is a grand chance for me. I have few plans of how to make a business and make it grow to support myself, but most of these ideas are rough plans that depend on luck and fate. After speaking of this and that with Captain Aldous, I started to feel sorry of how many lies I am telling this good man, so I took my leave and headed back to the inn. Drinking it over and heading to bed is the best solution. As I reached the Winking Skeever, I found no one on the first floor. Seems like they all went to bed. Lizette was gathering her stuff, and she seemed to be going to bed too. As I greeted her, she was looking at me and smiling as if she wanted to ask about something. I didn't really want to turn a beauty down, so I sat and invited her for a drink. She sat happily and started talking about the Bard's College and how she is having a hard time there. She also was interested in the song Sviti sings, as it seems that Sviti told her I wrote these songs. So that how it is. She wanted to learn some of these songs, but I am not getting out of this empty-handed, hee. I have some songs I newly wrote. They are in my room, I said while drinking. Oh, I would certainly love to get a look at them, but she was taken aback as I made my condition. Want songs? Come to take them yourself? It's a good song about warriors and all that stuff you bards love. I said, now the offer is better. Ehem. Is it okay? She said. She knew she was being pulled into something. This is my last night in the inn anyway. I'll leave tomorrow on a ship after the last round, so I would like to get some rest. I said. I was already putting down the tankard. About the song. She said. You are welcome anytime. I said. I went directly to my room. As I entered, I hid the stuff on me back in the chest and wore the comfiest thing I have. After a few minutes, I heard soft knocks on the door. I wasn't in a hurry and pretended not to hear until it was knocked again. Coming. Oh, what a pleasant surprise. I said as I saw Lizette behind the door. Come in. I invited her in and she walked in slowly, and with one finger I closed the door. Have a seat. I'll bring you a drink, I said while pointing at a chair and picking a wine bottle. Mead won't do this time. Lizette nodded while making a pitiful face. Please don't make me feel like a bad guy. I put a goblet in front of her and poured some wine, then went back and brought out a journal. Here, these are some of the best stuff I wrote, I said and put the journal in front of her. Have fun? After I said that, I went and sat cross-legged on the bed, then closed my eyes. Did I come at a bad time perhaps? Lizette asked nervously. Not at all. I am just preparing the joystick, I said, opening half an eye. Teach, the what, stick? She started stuttering with words and looked frightened. The joystick, I said. It's a very delicate state of mind. A known meme in the game. Noah's fishy stick. Oh, right, Lizette said while looking back at the journal. She started to ask me questions about the songs, and we drank for some time. Still, it's a mystery how she was sitting on the bed next to me right now. I looked at the girl who sat beside me on the bed. She was an angelic beauty no matter how I think about it. She smelled so nice. I think she bought that perfume from Angeline's Aromatics. Bretons know their stuff after all. She had a small build and a lively atmosphere that makes you want to pat her head and see her smile. She was smiling right now when she was sitting next to me. I think I made a good job writing those songs after all. We sat side to side and held the journal between us. I stole few looks at her by going backward and gaining some height over her. The feeling she gives when I look at her that close is so intoxicating. She has a blonde, wavy long hair, as if strands of gold going down to her neck and on her shoulders. Her skin was fair white like that of Nords. Her eyes were gray, though they lacked of color unlike the natives of this land. Her eyes were still big and beautiful. Why am I speaking about her eyes now? Wasn't I sneaking peeks at her? Seriously. She caught me while I was intoxicated with her beauty. What a trap I walked in. Was it her beauty, or the wine that trapped me, I wonder? I don't care. I'll just throw that goblet away now. And I did just that. Oh, it was already empty. Worthless empty goblet. Back to the beauty in hand. She was still looking at me eye to eye. Yet she also woke up and started looking away. No, not now. Not just yet. I am not done, I said as I touched her chin with a finger and returned her face to face mine. I still want more. Yet she was moving her eyes to the side. No, I can't take it anymore. I want more from these eyes. There is a song that I haven't read written within. I can't take my eyes of hers just yet. She still held the journal front of herself. Fine then, no journal for the naughty. I took that journal from her. I took it and put it in my clothes. Now she gazed her eyes to mine. Yes, more. Let me see them more. The journal. I still want to read it, she said. She looked to where I hid them and her eyes teared. Now, these eyes tell a different song when her emotions change. Why don't you take it out? I said as I approached her. Now she is in my trap. She is between my arms. She is not moving away. I want more of that. Why is she different? I think I can't push her like this. I need to guide her. Yes, guide her. She seems not knowing what to do now. I held her forearms and pulled her closer. Then I loosened my robe just a bit. I got closer to her face and held her hand, then put it on me. See, it's just there. Why don't you take it? I said. If you don't take it, I will take you. She was breathing heavily with her body getting hotter and hotter, and she looked down. Now, don't look down. I raised her face to look at mine. She has submitted to much. I have no experience with a girl like her. The ones I knew were really bold and took the initiative for every move. I got my face closer to her. I could feel her warm breathing on my skin. I couldn't take it anymore. Now I had to kiss her, and so I did. I kissed her on her lips lightly and she was not resisting. I had to hold her body from the waist now, she giving in, and I was allowed to pleasure her as I want. I moved her on my hips and body stuck to mine. Here temperature was so warm in this cold weather. I had to kiss her, again to fill my intoxication level once again. Now I am drunk in her vividness and beauty. I started telling her how to respond and kiss back. She was reacting sometimes and lagging the other times. She clearly was a virgin. As we felt hotter, our clothes started feeling like a blockage of fibers. We had to get rid of that and free ourselves. She was reluctant at first, but I took her clothes away anyway. She looked so beautiful in her as she was naked. Her breasts were smaller than that of the bathhouse girls, yet they were round and full. They felt so good as I touched them as her body started twitching. When I touched her nibbles, I could hear her moan. She was perfect, so perfect I felt like I was cheated when I went to the bathhouse. These sounds she made were of a true pleasure. I was going crazy from hearing her. I started using my mouth around to play with these goodies. She was pretty much heated up now. There were few underwears that separated us from the real pleasure. As I moved my hands to remove them from her, she held into them. I could see her face looking hesitant. I understood her. I moved myself to lay beside her, and our bodies touched each other. I went to her face and kissed her cheeks and told her sweet words while fighting with our hands downstairs. Don't worry. It won't be bad. I said that to her. Please go easy, she said in a very hot voice. How could I disobey her like this? I took her on me and slowly removed the last bit of clothes on us. Now I could see everything I want to see. I needed to make it easy on her, so made Little John touch with her hot over downstairs. Doing that, the only best way to heat her up is to rub our bodies together. If we don't, we may catch cold or something. I didn't waste any time as I took her and covered ourselves with the blanket. I took her lips with mine and entered in a hot hug as our lower halves were heating each other. We moved between each other's lips and necks, exchanging all sort of sweet words. She started to react more finally. She was doing great. And here it comes. I was planning for this. I fixed our position and pinned her down, saying, "Ready or not?" Here I come. She closed her eyes and readied herself. Little John invaded her over with vigor. This was so damn tight. So tight that I felt crazy from this tightness. This was the best tightness I ever felt. As I took it out, there was a small amount of blood. Wiping it away, we continued like crazy. She appeared to be in pain at first, but now she held me with her legs and didn't want to let go. Even when her tight oven spewed its lave out, she barely let me out before she would scream on my and pull me back in again. The amount of kissing and fluids that we made that day was amazing. She even didn't let me do it outside. I was worried, but she insisted to take it all in. This was the best time I ever had in 2 lifetimes. Can there be anything better than this? I didn't drink a potion this time. That girl would be done for if I did drink one. It needed a level of strength to take on someone with that amount of vigor. The after effect of the potion that was reflected on the size was great, as we pleased ourselves to the best of our ability. After a while, we laid down beside each other. I was sleeping on my back, and she slept on her front, borrowing the half of me to rest on. She took my right arm and hugged it with her body. I couldn't help but smile and played with her hair. We exchanged few kisses, and she directly went asleep. I looked at her and closed my eyes. Next thing I know was light of day coming from the window. This light of morning is annoying. I also feel something heavy. Why is it heavy? How did this happen? I don't remember. How did this happen? She is sleeping. Lizette is sleeping. And she is... Sweet baby Talos. Why is she naked? Why do I feel like I am missing an arm? No, she is just hugging it and it turned numb. Let's try to retrieve it. Yes, please, I'll be needing that. Move up a bit, thank you. This lucky arm of mine spent the night being hugged alone. The rest of my body is feeling envious now. No. Focus. This is not the problem now. I don't remember what happened, and I think she will not remember either. It will be a pain if she freaked out. Under sunlight that came from the window, this girl appeared so vividly beautiful. Her platinum hair and soft skin lying beside me can turn me crazy, but the hangover was keeping me in check. I think I still have some of that hangover remedy potion somewhere. Fetching it from the inn table, I drained it in one go. While clearing up my mind, I started thinking about this and that. My life turned into that of a secret agent lately. I planted explosives in the castle, then went and slept with a beauty. How nice. Judging by the angle of the sun, I woke up early as my biological clock is accurate as ever. Even though I slept for only 3 hours, I am wide awake now. After sobering up, I looked back at the sleeping beauty behind me to find her eyes open and were looking at me silently. I was about to freak out, but she didn't seem to be shocked or anything. She just stared at me. Good morning, I said while smiling. Good morning, she said, then she sat next to me. We were both naked and I felt a bit awkward. As I was about to say something, she took my arm again and hugged it the same way she was doing when she was asleep. Just as you said, it wasn't that bad, she said. I did. I was wondering what she said. You don't remember? She looked at me strangely, then she leaned her head on my arm and closed her eyes. It's okay if you don't. You were drunk, so I don't think you were lying. Did I say anything weird, embarrassing, or crazy? I asked, seriously now. How did I get this drunk? Nothing out of the ordinary for a drunk Nord. Just dragons, and more dragons, she said and laughed. Damn it. I brought up dragons again. We stayed like this for a while as I couldn't resist the urge to play with her hair. Doing that made me remember some of what happened last night. I'll leave the room to you if you want to sleep more. I'll go get ready for the last match now, I said as I separated myself from her. Beat them up, Dragonborn, Lizette said and giggled as she went back to sleep. Seriously now, how much nonsense did I say last night? Chapter 38, Spies. First-person POV. I went down to eat breakfast. I somewhat felt some presences downstairs, so I could already guess that some people woke up. Judging by habit, Wolfer and Sviti would wake up before me. Back in the orphanage, our sleeping schedule was made by Narina and no one could break it, so it became a habit. Wolfer was eating breakfast alone. I joined him and ordered something. I went to your room for some hangover remedy, he said. Damn it now. I think I was still drunk and I saw things that shouldn't be there. He continued. Let's ignore that guy. You just can't keep it inside your pants, can you? He was still speaking. Fine. Here, a hangover remedy. I gave him all the potion left. Now I forgot everything this morning. Everything is hazy, he said. When did this guy become so shameless? Eating together for a while, the rest came walking like zombies and holding their heads from last night's rave. You guys deserve it. A courier for John Dare. I could hear someone calling. Strange. This is my first time receiving a courier. I went to the voice direction at the entrance of the inn to see who called. A person stood there and appeared to be a courier. Couriers are people who deliver messages to other people. In Skyrim, there is a post office-like system that works under every Jarl. People hire them for communication purposes and sending messages around all holds. Couriers also appeared in the game on many occasions. I am John, I said as I faced the young man. Oh, I have been looking for. Got something I am supposed to deliver. Your hands only, said the courier. Let's see here. A letter, sent by Nurina from Winterhold, to John Dare in the Winking Skeever. As the young man was speaking, I started lagging, but I lagged once again. First lag, this courier just now said the same words couriers say in the game. The exact same words when couriers deliver something. I just didn't know how to feel for a second. Should I be happy that something is the same from the game, or should I just freak out from the similarity? This was mortifying. The second thing is, Nurina sent a message, and she used a courier. Normally she uses the Thieves' Guild to do her communications, but she used a courier. Strange. I thanked the man and gave him a few copper septims, then went back to my seat. Wolfer and Sviti were curious about who might send me a letter. We basically are a bunch of kids who just left the orphanage. It's from Nurina, I said with a grin. Seems like even she couldn't help but miss this handsome young man. I was buffing my chest, yet Wolfer and Sviti were looking at me with disdain. He truly is headmistress's lapdog, Sviti said, and Wolfer started laughing. I gained many nicknames over the years from always being around Nurina, the lapdog, the minion, the thrall. And these aren't the worst names I got. God knows what Grelid used to call me behind my back. I was finished with opening the letter, not enduring to wait any longer. Let's see what Nurina have for me. John. Our friends in Winterhold has no business here, so I am not able to make any use of them. I forgot to buy some stuff from Rift Inn, as Winterhold is no better than Wasteland now. Buy these stuff for me. Nurina. Okawaye. Where is the rest of this letter? There gotta be another letter, right? What is that? A shopping list. Sviti, who sneaked behind me, snatched the letter from my hands, yet I didn't respond. I was overwhelmed with embarrassment now. Sviti started laughing like a pirate and gave the letter to Wolfer, who laughed too. Guys, you can't do that to Big Bro, you know? She really did it this time. Sviti started tearing from laughter. No one can make that guy know his place like her. Wolfer also became my enemy. I was so down right now. I thought she might say something good. It has been a month, you know? This is the longest time we were separated, you know? Elves. I said to myself, these guys have no concept of time at all. Some Altmare in the inn started eyeing me after I said that. Ahem. I noticed, dark ones, and corrected myself. They got back to their business. Sigh. Sviti, can you help me with shopping? I said. Sviti nodded. Well, she made fun of me, so at least she has to apologize. But that's as strange. Winterhold is a major settlement in the game, even if it's in deep decline. I am sure they have some thieves or anything around, and the college also must be bringing business. For Nurina to send a courier and ask me to buy these stuff sure make me question the situation in Winterhold. Enough deep thinking now, Wolfer said. Make sure you don't eat too much. You have a big match this time, big boy. Why is he talking like a gym coach? I am sure I talk like that with him when I want to buff his morale. Is he worried and trying to buff my moralis after Nurina's blow? What a good friend. Fine. I am back to normal anyway. After all, I have been dealing with Nurina's clumsiness for years till now. Is there any news about who is going to bail out from the last match? I asked Wolfer. He looked at me and smiled, aside from Team Black Snow, which tragically lost a team member, and Team Bloodhand that was discovered to be in relations with assassins. There are only 2 teams that won't be participating. Wolfer said as he did some research. The first team is Swiftblades from Riften, as they seem to be not interested. The second team is Wolffangs, as you have already crippled most of their members. Swiftblades not entering is for sure. These guys are Thieves Guild. Their job was to get close to the participants and gather information about them. The guild also dealt with informations. As for Wolffangs, then that was my doing. So basically today is me against 27 others. Haha. I can see myself winning already. I said, this was a true madness. I don't want to take part in that madness. Whatever. I finished eating and went to my room to dress. Lisette was still here. She was dressing and ready to go. So, will I see you after the match? I asked. No, I will be at the college afterward. She said, don't worry. I will do fine until you decide to visit. She got close to me on her own, so I kissed her in return and held her hands. Yet I could see some sadness in her eyes. She was hesitating for some reason. Are you all right? I couldn't help but ask. I am fine, she said and made a cheerful face. I'll be on my way now. She said her farewells and left the room. Something didn't feel right, yet maybe she is sad or something. I hope my rash actions don't cause her harm. Third-person POV. Behind the inn, Lisette went out from the back door. She looked sad, yet it was no sadness of separation. She felt a lot of guilt too. After all, she was after him for a purpose, not a good song, or what people would think an ambitious bard would go after. She was after him for he was her target. Her mentor brought her into a fine bard for other reasons than just being a bard. This person had other plans for John, and she was just the mean to pry on him. Yet she has never thought that she would romance John for a full night. He was just someone she needed to get close to and take what she wants. Yet he overwhelmed her will as she felt no power but to be played by him. Even after that night, he wasn't just after her body, he was also interested in her. He even saw through her mood and asked if she was all right. He also wasn't dishonest with her. She knew liars, as of course, she was one. Forgive me. She couldn't help but mumble to herself. For what? A voice sounded. It came from her side. Lisette's face turned yellow from the shock, and she jumped back from the fright. This voice was so sudden. As she could take a good look at who was speaking, her expressions calmed down and could breathe. Nothing mentor. She could turn her expressions back to normal with no problem, as a bard. She knew who to act and perform to. Only thing is, she felt more depressed than before. Front of her was her mentor, a man she respected ever since she was a girl, and also the only person worthy of her respects in the Bard's College. It was the headmaster of the college, the Altmare, High Elf, Viarmo. The same Viarmo who does the commentary for the tournaments and the big events. She dreamt to be someone like this man. Therefore, she joined the college and endured how much rivalry and bad-mouthing happened between the young bards in the college. Yet one day, she found out that the person she always admired was not just a bard. He was something more. He had his own secrets like any other person, yet this time. This man didn't only just hide secrets, he also dealt with secrets. He was what people could call a secrets merchant. Someone who knows what others want to know and sells it for the buyer that would bring most benefit. This was what this man recruited her into, and what he also recruited many other bards all over Skyrim, as bards were everywhere, in every inn, palace, and sometimes in the influential people homes. This mentor was the owner of the biggest secrets trading business that even the Empire was working hard to establish a stable contact with him. Viarmo, the master of all the spies in Skyrim, was standing in front of her waiting for her results. What did you know about the boy, Lisette? Viarmo asked. Lisette, who was in a storm of feelings, started collecting her thoughts while thinking of how was she betraying John. I talked with him, she said meekly. And Viarmo replied with patience. He was not much different than what he shows to people, she said, or at least that what I thought at first. She took a breath and continued. He is an alchemist, a good alchemist too. I could smell many fragrant herbs and alchemical ingredients in his room, she said. He also sometimes sneaks out at night, but I couldn't tell where he goes to. Viarmo nodded and asked, what about his Thursday? That power of the voice? I couldn't learn anything. No one knows, not even his friends. But aside from obsessions with dragons, he had some books I could copy their titles in this note, she said as she handed out a note to him. Viarmo thought while taking her note, these are all mysterious book of magic, mostly in the old ways. Interesting, he said. Tell me, how did you get into his room? Lisette lagged for a bit. That answer was not easy to say. Didn't I tell you not to sneak behind closed doors? Viarmo said, but he was not angry. He was smiling kindly though. We are not thieves, my girl. I didn't sneak. The girl said, I was invited in, and halted. Viarmo thought and said, so you slept with him? Lisette's face turned red from shame. Viarmo laughed softly and looked at the short girl in front of him, then his tone turned serious. Did he harm you? Lisette shook her head hastily. She was already ashamed of what she did with and to John. Her conscience didn't stand any more harm to him. I see. Viarmo rubbed his chin and nodded. Listen, Lisette, I know what you are thinking, he said. This is your first real job, and for most of us, we sometimes have to mix between personal life and business. Lisette looked down and didn't talk. He is a youth that all the powers willing to curry favor with him. He won't be harmed by that much, Viarmo said and patted on Lisette's head. Suddenly cheers could be heard from the inn. It seems that participants started heading out to the arena. I will go now, Viarmo said and left Lisette behind. She just stood there without lifting her head up. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.